I move to call to order the Marshfield Conservation Commission meeting of December 21st, 2021. May I have a second?
I will second that.
You?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Just a couple of things before we begin. As per usual, we are conducting a hybrid meeting. If you are in the room, that's great. If you are on Zoom and any technical failure occurs, this meeting will continue in person in spite of that. We've made a couple of changes to the normal order of our agenda based on comments we received from the public. We will have business items, public hearings, certificate of compliance and extensions, and lastly, enforcement orders. Hopefully that will lead to a more equitable approach. So with that, I think we will move to the minutes of the 12/7/21 meeting. Do we have comments or edits on those?
A couple of commissioners got back and said they were good with them as is.
Good, no edits?
So it was written.
So I move that we approve the 12/7/21 minutes as written. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we are on the de minimis activity roll. Business item 1, 335 Carswell Street, hazardous tree removal and mitigation planting. The homeowner is requesting permission to remove trees and prune one that are threatening his house. The trees are in the boundary of an isolated vegetated wetland. The homeowner will replace these trees with shrubs and saplings. I move that we vote to ratify this as a de minimis activity for hazardous tree removal and mitigation planting at 335 Carswell Street. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up is SE 42-27-898 amended, Enterprise Drive. De minimis activity versus amended orders of conditions. And would you like to
Sure.
address this?
So I've given you a presentation here. This came before the commission several years back as the Enterprise Drive project for the billboard, the working shack that's back there, and the septic system. And the commission established, under what the originally amended, a limited clearing area. And part of the limited clearing is to the rear of the lot, which is abutting against the highway, which is the line of sight, or portion of the line of sight for this billboard. So recently, several of the proponents came to me and explained that they would like to open up the, the line of sight. Some of that's in the limited clearing and some of it's beyond it. And for the most part, what they're trying to do, the areas that are affected, that are on the plan, they're trying to basically remove the large trees for line of sight that are particularly on higher elevation. So cars going by would not be able to see the billboard. There's also work in the Meridian, which is beyond the scope here, but I just wanted you to know that's also going on. And there's about 8 trees that are upgrading into the 100-foot setback, this being the limited clearing, there being a cold water fishery down gradient. I spoke to the proponent. I said, look, these 8 look like they won't affect your line of sight. Maybe we can work with the commission and keep those. And they said, well, what happens if we want to get rid of them? I said, all right, I'll ask them if I could be out there at the time, and I'll make a field call on them. And if it's a problem, we'll take them out. Because the sign does put public safety values out there. It helps out with shelter at home, issues with the Plymouth, nuclear plant, issues with weather, et cetera. So there's a public safety component to the billboard. It's not just about advertising. So I thought that was a reasonable approach. And yeah, they're going to cut a lot of trees in there, but the vast majority of them are actually non-jurisdictional based on that order of conditions. And we're only asking to save 8 trees. So I thought it was a reasonable approach. And some of what they're doing was proactive, what you would want anyways. They're keeping the smaller trees.
Any discussion? So you will be
Yeah, I'll go out,
on site with them and you'll
Yeah.
save whatever
the 8 trees.
the 8 trees that are, okay. Is that, okay? In that case, I vote to approve a de minimis activity with special conditions for billboard vista pruning, meeting public safety wetland values within the limit of clearing to provide a highway line of sight. Special conditions to include that the conservation administrator will be present to address 8 select trees within the grouping of 1467 to 1478 for final cutting decision. May I have a second?
I will second.
Joe?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll call those guys and get it going. Thanks.
All right, B3, the Dyke Road Sluiceway, replacing a suspended water main and red line sewer line review as a candidate for WPA exemption. And I see Mr. Procaccino on there. Would you like to address us on this?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One of the, I'll call it an emergency condition. It's been an emergency condition for a while. It was to address a water main that is currently in a sleeve that has severely deteriorated. It's suspended underneath the sluiceway structure. We're talking about Dyke Road tide gate structure. It's on the upstream side. It is slightly under the bridge, if you want to call it that. It's in need of replacement. It's a pipe that is under pressure, and it has limited support structure keeping it in place. I'll see if I can describe it that way. And the exterior steel pipe that holds and supports the pipe that's carrying the water is just totally deteriorated. We had some funding and we addressed the support structure itself and putting in temporary supports underneath or adjacent to the support wall, the center support wall, which was also deteriorated. We took care of that, but this next problem was the water main jacket and water main, support the water main. So we plan on replacing a piece of that water main and the jacket, and we just got some funding through from the selectmen, and we had started the design work on that, and I wanted to find out if we could consider this as a de minimis activity. It's a utility, it's in the road. What we would be doing would be to dig 2 pits in the road on either side of the structure, get down to where the water main penetrates the wall, and we would be cutting the old water main out of the way and putting a new water main in its place. And then this, first we would be replacing that sleeve as well. So we would dismantle the sleeve in the water main, get that out of the way, and then put a new sleeve in, and then slide the other water main section through the sleeve, grout it, or it might come insulated. I'm not really sure exactly the total detail. It hasn't been totally designed yet. We do have to go to the state to get permits and to approve of the design, but right now I'm just trying to get some idea of what level of permitting I need, and it falls under this exemption as a water utility, and the work is in the road. And I thought maybe we could get this determined as a de minimis activity. So I don't know if you have an idea what we're looking for, but.
So they provided a pretty good set of sketches, which were provided to you either on the Google Drive or on hard copies. The material he was talking about, it's asbestos cement that's going to have all the right protocols and right personnel, and that's why they're going to state, and they'll get that part done. As far as it goes from our perspective, the metal jacket around it is like wafered, it's just crumbling, and it's suspended. And then they're also relining the sewer line, and he's shown all these details. So in other words, it's in place already, and it looks to me like it's a candidate for the exemption. There are 2 permits on the wastewater main which would have tied in with the system at some point in time, and if you notice on your document, sewer's in red, so that fits, and then water delivery is another one. So DEP's kind of said that this would be something to consider for these kind of activities. If this is brand new, going through a resource area, now you'll trigger an NOI or some level of conservation permit. So it seems to be a fit in general for the exemption, and not needing even a de minimis, just getting it out there in the public so that you know what's happening.
Well,
As far as the sewer line, basically that will involve accessing through the existing manholes. They'll bring a sock. They will pull the sock through about a 20-foot section of the sewer, and they have a process where they've got some sort of an epoxy and steam is applied, and it inflates the sock up against the existing sewer line, and then the resin sets up and it forms a layer inside the internal cavity of the existing pipe, and it's got a structural component to it, so it kind of rejuvenates the existing sewer. It's pretty much done within the 2 manholes that we have. We might have to temporarily bypass the sewer flow, which would amount to a plastic pipe from one manhole to the next with a pump, and just kind of shuttling the wastewater around what we're doing. It all depends on the timing of it, but that's probably how it's going to be handled. And like I said, there's not a lot of excavation. It's pretty much going from one manhole to the next manhole as far as the actual lining process. So it's in the road, pretty much no digging, and that is that's a pretty easy. It's such a short distance. It's a pretty easy job to get that done. We'll be cameraing the sewer shortly, within the next couple of weeks, and to see what the condition is. But our guys already been in the manholes already, and think it's very doable.
Well, based on the photographs, it certainly needs to be done. That looks pretty bad under there. Any commissioner comment or discussion?
No, I agree. Move it along.
Exemption? All right. In that case, I move that we vote to approve the exemption as the pipe is found to be existing before the WPA enactment and/or lawfully located. Special conditions include notifying the conservation administrator 2 weeks in advance of the work and utilization of containment and qualified personnel to remove the asbestos-containing cement cover. May I have a second?
Joe Ring.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good job, Rod. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Rod.
Okay, business item 4, Webster Point Village at Tremont and Carswell Streets. National Heritage status permit discussion and outreach. Would you like to take this?
So there's a permit for conservation management permit or plan for the natural heritage endangered species for a joint 40B project on the corner of Tremont and Carswell. Sorry about that. And this has been before the commission in 2007 as an ANRAD, so an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation just for the wetland line. It was found to be inaccurate. No other steps were taken for permitting with Marshfield Concom. They did come back in 2018 to talk to the commission about possibly taking a conservation restriction on an 8.9 article or acre area within this particular subdivision, and the commission did not make a decision to approve it at the time. Wanted more information, and it kind of just never came back. Now it's been brought to our attention that there's going to be an extension. I think it's the second or third extension at the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program level. And rather than not saying anything, I thought maybe it would be a good idea to communicate some kind of a position. At first, I thought maybe it might be a good idea to suggest to them that they don't actually go forward with the extension. But after talking to the chair, and we kind of took a look at it, it didn't really seem to make any sense because they got to make their own decision. So long story short, what could happen instead is it could be that the commission allows me to communicate with the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program and let them know about the status of the permitting level, which is non-existent here because we don't have any valid permits at the local level. Now, all this is under Chapter 131, Section 40, not the bylaw, due to the fact that it's a 40B and it's with ZBA. So we'd be looking at it as a local managing the state unless the state steps in and handles the state. Duxbury's also got that situation going on, but somebody needs to provide a wetland delineation out there. There are vernal pools that were never captured. There was an isolated vegetated wetland. Bordering vegetated wetland, these were found to be inaccurate. So I talked to town council. Town council gave me some background on this, and the question came up about talking to Natural Heritage. He said, yes, you should talk to Natural Heritage, which I did. So I talked to Natural Heritage, and they didn't know about the lack of permits at that level. The upper management didn't know that. The lower management may know it, or the administrative level may know it, but they're on vacation right now. So long story short, this is going to it's already been submitted as extension, and there's an opportunity to communicate with them formally to maybe just lay out or let them see what the lack of permitting that there is. And they also don't necessarily need to go forward with a 5-year extension. We could possibly say, and we make it a practice on subdivisions where we're having trouble, is to give a 1 or 2 year extension, as said, so that they circle back and start managing the work that we've asked them to do. It's one of the tools that we've used and found successful. So in other words, really taper that messaging down. And I just, I wanted to throw that out there. And I can't do that unless the commission says it's okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sounds
Bill.
good.
Anyone object to that?
No.
In that case, I move that we vote to direct the Conservation Administrator to draft and send a response letter to the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program that the Marshfield Conservation Commission encourages them to deny the extension.
Can we make a little modification there, that I will
Yep.
give them an update about the permitting status? All right, update about the permitting status. That was our,
All right, Administrator Grafton will give an update about the permitting
status.
status to the Natural Heritage
Right.
and Endangered Species Program, that the Marshfield Conservation Commission encourages them to deny the extension. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
I'm giving that to Art. Thank you very much. That'll take care of that.
All right. Item B5, 52 Jackson Street. Here we have a situation where a home has been deemed a substantial renovation based strictly on interior work. It's in a jurisdictional boundary, but nothing is happening to affect the resource area because all of the work is interior. The building commissioner, Andrew Stewart, is fine with them putting the required flood vents into the existing foundation. And because we effectively have no area that impacts us in our jurisdiction, it seems that that would be the common sense approach. Before we vote on this, however, we have Mr. William Finn here, whom I would like to recognize. He has been working with Commissioner Stewart to reconcile some of these cases where our revised regs conflict with the building regs. Would you like
Madam
to?
Chair, if I may, could I suggest that you go ahead and
vote on this?
On Jackson, and then I'll address a similar issue, which was before the commission on November 16th, and I'll get into it, but I think you should get Jackson out of the way first.
Okay. Does anybody want to discuss or add anything on Jackson? It's,
I'd just like to make for the record that Jackson is straight interior, from my understanding of it, and they haven't filed any conservation permit, because typically you wouldn't do that. If you're going to wallpaper, put in new furniture, put in walls, etc., that's not our jurisdiction. So I just want to make for the record it known that they haven't done any conservation permitting, and they didn't need to.
yeah.
So that seems to be where we are on that
Right,
one.
the
And
work
there'll be no
proposed
subsurface.
does not require any conservation permitting. So, you know, it's strictly interior, it's not jurisdictional to the Conservation Commission. So I move that we vote to confirm. Oh,
May I speak?
yes, Andrew, go ahead.
Andrew. Sorry, so I just wanted to clarify because, so this project has been deemed a substantial improvement by the building code, right? And so what that means is they have to be brought into compliance with the building code. And for that to happen in that area, so that area is Barrier Beach Coastal Dune. So we have a couple regulations we've got to address, which is, you know, yours and mine dealing with substantial improvements. And the thing about it is it's an existing foundation. They have produced an elevation certificate that shows that the home is actually elevated above the design flood elevation, and all the mechanicals are as well. The only problem is the foundation is not compliant. It's currently a cinder block foundation. And I think, like you said, all they would have to do to bring it into compliance as far as building code and FEMA standards would be to add flood vents and to fill the basement up to grade. That would bring it into compliance for that flood zone. But for it, if it's delineated as a coastal dune, that's where the requirements then say, oh, it needs to be on timber piles. So basically, they have to come back to conservation once I determine it to be a substantial improvement, at minimum for the fill that has to be added underneath the house. But also, I think it's important for the Conservation Commission to come up with a way to be able to permit these houses in these areas that are existing and kind of compliant to remain, you know, to become compliant with that flood zone and not necessarily have to disrupt that area by moving the house and driving piles and demoing an existing foundation. So that was pretty much, that's the reason it was coming to use, because once it became a substantial improvement to the building code, there are things that have to happen that Concom then has to address as well. You know, that's why I had it come to you guys for discussion.
Thank you.
good.
Thank you. Good clarification. So I'm going to move that we vote to confirm that Chapter 505, 307.2 foundation requirement is not applicable to the interior work that triggered a substantial determination by the building commissioner. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And on the same subject, I'd like to recognize Mr. Finn, who has been working with Commissioner Stewart on these issues.
Part of my scope of work for the commission. My name is William Finn. I am a consultant to the commission. Part of my scope of work is to see how the 505s are being implemented, the problems that you see with them, and how they're interfacing with the building department and planning board and zoning, etc. About on November 16th, I was attending a meeting here, and we had an issue come before the commission regarding 226, I believe it is,
226 Bay.
Okay.
Bay Avenue, yes. And I think I got the strong sense that of frustration on the part of everybody as a result of that hearing or meeting. I should say, a strong sense of frustration on the part of the commission and the building commissioner and the applicant. Well, this topic, this particular issue came up again in my discussions with the building commissioner in the last couple of days. And between us, we've come up with a way, I think, that we can go forward with that project for further consideration by the commission. The building commissioner is required by his regulations to get one of 4 documents or decisions from the Conservation Commission when he's making a determination to issue a building permit. One is an order of conditions. The second is, a second one is an order of resource area delineation. The third one would be a determination of applicability. And the last one would be a notice of non-significance, which is issued under a WPA Form 6, notification of non-significance. And the discussion that we undertook was that this particular location, this particular project, has already had a hearing, it's already had a notice of intent, and you've issued an order of conditions. But so what we thought was a good idea, and in line with what you've just decided on this previous project you just voted on, was to reopen the hearing on that particular location and amend or supplement the order of conditions that you've issued with a Form 6 notification of non-significance, which would apply to all of the activities which occur inside of the existing structure. So that the order of conditions would apply and be amended to specifically address the extension, which is a pile-supported addition, which is compliant with your order with our regulations, and compliant with the building department, and compliant with the flood zone regulations, and amend it and supplement that order of conditions with a notification of non-significance, which is Form 6, as it applies to all of the activity which would occur internally to the house, which is no significant impact on the resource area. Now, there are some details that we have to work out. So what I'm here tonight to ask you is get a sense from the commission if you would be willing to consider reopening that and amending or supplementing that order of conditions, given the fact that the building commissioner will request you to do a supplement with the Form 6, and the applicant would request you to reopen the public hearing on that order of conditions for a possibility of amendment and supplement. If you got those 2 documents, one from the building commissioner and one from the applicant, I'm trying to get a sense of whether you would be willing to consider reopening that public hearing and reopening the order of conditions for amendment and supplication.
Yes?
Yes,
That's good.
I have
Makes
a
sense, Bill.
question. I have a question, Bill. Both Bay Ave and the one we just voted on, the one in Wrexham, they both meet the elevation requirements already. Is that what would be, how many of these are we gonna see? I think it's rare that these houses will already meet the elevation. And this will be for Andrew too. Is this what you anticipate, that we would see this if a house already meets the elevation? That this circumstance could
Is he
go
there
forward?
still?
He's there.
I am. It is something that we see, quite honestly. There are a lot of houses like this that are kind of pre-existing houses that are elevated, but the foundation is not compliant. it may be compliant. So, and the thing is, we have Barrier Beach, which can be delineated as a coastal dune, right? And so, all of those houses in those areas that are, previously disturbed with the diminished function, they have a non-compliant foundation, but they're elevated to the right height. All they'd have to do for the flood zone that they're in, whether it was an AE or an AO zone, would be to add some smart vents and maybe fill the basement. And that's all that would need to be done to bring it into compliance with the flood zone. But to be in compliance with the resource area would mean moving the house, removing the existing foundation, site grading, new piles, bringing in a new house, the house back on and reattaching it onto the new foundation. So, the argument is being made that activity of the full moving the house and excavating and all that would be far more disruptive to some of these resource areas than making a minor modification to an existing foundation that would bring it into compliance with FEMA and building code for that flood zone. So that's kind of the thought process there. In the case of 226, the whole point there is, so they have this existing foundation now. It's on open columns, so that's already a benefit for that area. The problem is it's got footings, right? So, but if we really think about it, if we're to move that house and pull up all those footings and disturb that area, instead of just doing the fill underneath and doing the new work with new pilings, it would bring that into more conformance than we currently have. It would improve the functions of storm damage prevention and flood control functions of that lot inherently, which is what we're looking for with.
Lost him.
So, just quickly, he has 4 different things he needs. They read them out, OOCs.
Only
ORED.
one of the 4.
One of the 4 he needs, or you can have a multiple. The DOA or this Form 6. But what's not left out is may there be other ways of doing some of these things, of revising the regs might be one of them, and there might be other options. So I would just say that this might be one of the tools. It hasn't been commonly used by Marshfield, but it's available. And so since it's specifically called out, Bill's done the research with Andrew, it's worth exploring along with a suite of other options that will vet themselves out. So I would like to just expand that a little bit. I don't know how that'll come out, but we're trying to help people in these situations that are not traditional activities or work in resource areas get through the permitting process. So that's kind of the goal here, without having any violations of the Wetland Protection Act or the bylaw.
So the question do you want to add anything else, Mr. Finn? Or?
No, I would like to get a sense of the board. We're not on the agenda tonight, so we can't vote
Right.
to do it tonight. But
So-
a sense of the board, if you would be willing to, at your next meeting, if it was on the agenda, consider reopening the hearing and setting a date for certain to reopen that public hearing and revisit the order of conditions to
So-
supplement it.
I'm going to poll the commission. Rick? Joe? Bert?
Yes, and if we're gonna go for it,
Arthur?
find a way to move it ahead as easy as
Yes.
possible.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm not leaving. I'm just getting out of your way.
Okay, item B6, we have a complaint about work in the conservation parcel behind 54 Marshview Drive. And I believe, did you go out there today, Eric?
Not today, but this was a couple weeks ago. We received a written complaint in conservation, and it was also received by the select board from neighbors anonymously on Marshview Drive, talking about some clearing going on behind house 54 on that street. The parcel behind the houses on that street is a 27-acre conservation parcel back there. So I went out to do a site visit a couple weeks ago and access the conservation parcel via the unimproved portion of the road between 58 and 54 Marshview Drive. there was evidence of topsoil removal and clear alteration with machinery back there. There were some stumps cut back there, and it looked like a massive pile of brush and other debris had been pushed back into the conservation land. I can share a couple photos with you now. I didn't speak with the homeowner that day, but I did leave a notice of site visit, and then the homeowner got in touch with me the following day, and she's here tonight. And I met with her a couple days later to review the work. This is the view of the unimproved portion of the road from the street. And if you go straight back, you can start to see where stuff got moved around by machinery. So there's tracks there. There's stumps along the back here. Aerials indicate that the property line runs approximately in line with this shed that you can see kind of on the right side of the screen here. But I think, a survey would probably be needed to get an accurate depiction of where that boundary is. And basically, you can see here, relatively freshly cut stumps, more views of the clearing. And then the last thing I just want to show is the pile that was pushed to the back. And that is here. So this is the pile of debris and brush that was pushed back there. When I spoke to the homeowner, she said that people have been using the end of that unimproved road as a dumping site, saying that it's, public land and that they have the right to dump their organic materials there. I think the commission has seen a lot of the yard waste dumping, and this seems to be a, pretty big example of it. So there's a lot of stuff back there. I talked to the homeowner about what can and can't happen. Basically, we don't allow work on conservation land for the purposes of clearing and making it, look nice by cutting down trees or moving piles of brush. But we also certainly don't allow disposal of green waste on conservation land. So just a couple recommendations I would have in terms of moving forward on this would be to get this property line marked with conservation land markers, maybe one of the blue and white signs at the end of that paper road. And then if the commission feels that this pile should be, pulled out of there with the heavy machinery that brought it in there, then that could also be a potential course of action. So that's it from my side. I'm happy to answer any questions.
The piles that are like around the tree trunk, that progressively will kill it. You need to have it. It can't, like, people will mulch up really high. It's not the best thing. You should, leave space around it so that the trunk is not encased like this. That's a good way to kill it and introduce insects up and down it that'll be aggressive on it. So anyways, getting it out of there would probably be a good idea. It would also say, it'd help out with the neighbors. So I like what Eric's got for a plan personally.
Is that pile result of the neighbors dumping green waste and cuttings and leaves along with any other clearing that was done? So it's not just the homeowners at your place? Okay.
So getting that out of there, though, is going to result in further disturbance with heavy equipment.
Well, I did a project once. We had a situation like this in Norwell. I participated in it, and we removed it carefully and got it away from it, and we got it out of there. We reused the logs. The agent then said, reuse the logs and rocks and make habitat. We found frogs all over the place. So they could make use of that. So there's a way to do this and not have it be as intrusive as it seems. With heavy equipment, it could be half a day of work or something. Maybe a day. I don't know. I didn't look at it, so I can't totally say that, but it seems like that heavy equipment you could.
I would support the markers, because I think that's an absolute, and getting the pile out of there.
So maybe I could make a suggestion to the commission, since we have the homeowner here. When I spoke with her, she expressed interest in getting it surveyed herself potentially, so maybe we could talk with her about her potentially taking some of these actions. Certainly we could supply markers and signs, but in terms of getting, surveyed lines and depictions of property boundaries, maybe that would be something that the homeowner could take care of.
You
I have a question, Eric, the trees were removed,
Yes,
so you didn't mention any mitigation to replace the trees?
that's something else the commission could consider too. I think the big thing here, the most important part would be to stop encroachment and stop dumping in the back here. This isn't a wetland violation, it is just an encroachment on town land. But if tree planting is something the commission wants to consider, that's certainly an option also.
No, I'm asking the question, so I'm just trying to get educated. So usually when there are maybe there's a fine line here, a fine point that I'm missing. But when trees are removed, generally, we have mitigation to replace things. Is there an exception on this that I'm
Well,
missing?
typically when we're asking for mitigation, it's because a buffer zone or wetland resource area has been encroached upon, and we're looking for mitigation to protect the values that are protected under, the act and the bylaw. In this case, we did lose trees, and trees are important, so of course the commission has the option to request them back. But we're not talking about a wetland area. We are just talking about an upland conservation parcel. So that would be the difference from where we would normally look for mitigation.
Do we know who cut the trees?
So I had someone come up with the bobcat to remove all that debris
Mhm.
that was building behind the fence that Eric took the picture of. And it was just a dumping ground. There's tires being dumped there, pools, old fences. It just became like, because there's a paper road between me
Right.
and the neighbor, there's no fence between us. And so I had told Eric, I didn't even know it was conservation. I apologize. I didn't know it was conservation land back here. I was just trying to clean it up and like give a gentle reminder, like someone lives here, and please don't dump all your things there. That was it. And then and then someone called. So, but I'll do whatever you guys feel I should do. Yeah.
But to specifically answer your question, Art, there were at least 6 to 10 trees that were cut of a diameter size, at least between 3 and 6, 7, 8 inches probably. The largest one would have been. And again, I think the larger ones would have been right to the rear of the yard there, just at the edge of the forest, and then some smaller ones cut along that pathway into the forest where they pushed that pile back.
Is cleanup of the pile mitigation?
I'm sorry?
Is cleanup of the pile mitigation?
I think so.
There's all that stuff that she didn't bring in there. Some of it she may have been party to, but not all of it. There's tires and other things, and maybe cleanup of the pile.
She'd be doing us a favor by removing that.
Yeah.
So, to Joe's point, there was a time on another road, a lady followed up on me many times, and I had to figure out how much it would cost to remove a pile, about, 1/8 of that, and with human labor and the equipment we had, we were estimating 2,000. With heavy equipment, probably a lot less. You can get it all in one push, and stuff that's been going on for a long time. You get a whole neighborhood if you deal with that, whereas you lose 6 trees or something like that. That's the balancing act, and you're going to get signage, which you never got before, and that's also neighborhood protection. So, I'm with you, Art, on the trees and the wildlife habitat, but some of it will rejuvenate, and the pile, to me, from my perspective, if I was a sitting commissioner in Norwalk Hingham, I would say I'd want the pile and the markers, if I couldn't get all 3 things.
I like the pile and markers.
I agree with that, but I would like one of the big blue signs
Yeah.
on the paper road.
I thought that was part of it, so thank you
Yeah,
for
that's-
clarification.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear, in addition to markers, our typical 4x4s, one of the big blues on the paper
Yeah,
road.
we have that,
Yeah.
and we can give you the signs, so you can, we've done this in advance because we've had problems, we need to put them up, and here's a problem, we need help from you this time.
Yeah, there's some cost involved in putting those up too, so that's additional.
Yeah,
And then you're surveying, so you'll know exactly where to put them, And then we can help you out, or Eric can,
okay.
And that hopefully helps you as well by marking things off, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because of paper road and no fencing, and I've only been there for 5 years, so some people have been there for 50 years. So there's just this is what they do. They bring it here and they just dump it. And I was trying to do I don't know, nice neighbor, clean it up. Let's not do that. I did the wrong thing.
No
Sorry.
good deed.
No good deed, yep, exactly,
So, we good?
Those paper
Vote?
roads and dead ends are popular dumping places.
yeah.
What can you do with a paper road? I don't know. Can you put a fence across the paper road?
Well, it's a complicated story. You check with the engineering, et cetera, because they may have some things going on, but technically on developed road, you're halfway out is owned by each owner on either side. But, also you got Concom to the rear, so there's some of that going on. So that's a complicated area.
Well, okay, if we are in agreement, I move that we vote to direct the removal of the brush and debris piles under the supervision of conservation staff and posting of conservation land markers along the rear of the owner's property and the town-owned conservation land, and post one blue and white town-owned conservation land sign. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right, Joe. All right, very good,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you.
So do I bring the contractor in, or you guys?
You,
I bring him in, okay, so.
if you want him to talk to, Eric can
I
guide
can come
it.
meet with you on the site and we can go over how to do it.
And stop by Liz or Eric, or I can give you the signs.
Okay, great,
Right.
okay.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, B7, discuss Mass DEP guidance on conservation permit and enforcement. So
All right.
this is coming from staff, so you can take it away.
Yeah, so we've been guided, but not told, to start using digital with the DEP. A lot of their staff is working remotely, Natural Heritage the same way in general, et cetera. And so they've said, they're trying to ease us in. They have a Mass DEP filing also. We use our own forms, so we keep Chapter 294 and 505 associated with the filing so that there's no ambiguity at all. So we don't use the Mass DEP. But on the receiving end, when we send them something, they want the COCs, the OOCs, the ORADs, the determination of applicabilities, enforcement orders, the emergency search, et cetera, now the Form 6s, and they want those digital. I mean, they want them, but they haven't stated it. So I thought, okay, let's take it out of their hands. Let's make a local protocol that we're going to do that unless there is a specific request for a hard copy, and then we'll send it off. It'll save us a ton of paperwork time, a ton of personnel time, and a ton of postage costs too. So it'll be a great boon across the board, and they don't want the piles of paper either on their end. And we have a good digital system going now, so it makes sense.
When do you want to extend that down to the local level?
How do you mean?
Get rid of a lot of this.
Oh, I got you. We're gonna try to keep you guys as prepared as we can. Would you prefer to have digital?
No,
Okay, anybody?
not when you have drawings and,
Well, I was just gonna say, occasionally, when you have a big project where you need a full-size drawing, but
Like these?
like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
absolutely, but a lot of this,
yeah, some of it could be cut back.
Well, to Bert's point, we did cut down from 9 to 8, so we saved on that. You were involved in that, Bert, when we did the policy and cut that back down on the checklist. A lot of this is so that you're well prepared. I have 2 commissioners who want printouts, I give it to them. The rest are getting digital. You get all the hard copies too, and then we provide it for you on Google. If anybody here doesn't want the hard copies anymore and just wants to go straight Google, it's pretty reliable. I mean, Eric and Liz do a great job keeping it up, and I circle back periodically. So you pretty much have everything you could possibly need. So if you want to opt out of the paperwork, send us an email. You want no more paperwork? All right.
You know I don't use the paper.
All right. So then what we'll do is we'll send you an email based on this. Any commissioners who don't want hard copies, I know the 2 who do, just let us know and we'll go straight Google then. But if you want your paper, you'll still get it. So we'll cut down a little more.
Okay, chip away at it. Yep. All right, I move that we vote to direct Marshfield Conservation staff to provide digital versions of conservation permits, enforcement orders, and emergency certifications to Mass DEP unless a specific request for paper copies is received. May I have a second?
Second.
Joe. Okay.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Those say no. All right.
Okay, that concludes the opening business section. We are now on public hearings. The first up is a new hearing. I will read the legal ad. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Joanna and Benjamin Powell, 1 Earl Avenue, Marshfield, Mass., to determine whether the area depicted on the plans and/or maps referenced below is an area subject to the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. And the hearing officer is Vice Chair O'Donnell.
before Bert starts, we've got 5 continuations. Should we just read them in?
Oh,
real
I'm
rapid?
sorry.
I could do them, or you could do them. I got them right here in front of
You
me.
want to do them? Okay.
Okay, on behalf of the chair, the public should know that the following are continued. We'll read them in the record, but this is a fast track, so you have it. 12 Branch, Trockey, Raise and Rebuild, SE 422951 will continue to 818. There'll be a vote on it later. 274 Foster Ave, Speakman, Elevate Single Family Home, SE 422958 will continue to 118. We'll read that in the record later. 202 Moraine Street, Sealand, Red Gold Farm Subdivision, SE 42-2960. That'll continue to 118-2022. We'll read that in the record later. 72 Bay Avenue, Hanlon, additional surfacing under house, SE 42-2754 amended. We'll read that in the record later. That will continue to a date to be made certain. 62 Marginal Street, Lawson Dock, SE 42-2954. That will be read into the record and continued to a date certain when it is read in the record. So those are the 5.
Was marginal continued? I think that's on the schedule.
think you
for
meant
tonight.
Gomes.
They're on the
Oh, I'm
schedule.
sorry about that.
Gomes.
My bad.
Gomes is continued.
Oh, it says continued hearing, and we're going to definitely continue. Okay, so 72 Bay I got correct, right?
Yes.
So I take that back. Are we allowed to do that? 62 Marginal will be heard tonight. Sorry. 76 Carolyn Circle is continued. Okay, and that's at 76 Carolyn Circle, Gums, Dock System, SE 42-2950. That'll be read in the record for a date certain continuation later in the evening. And I think that did it. Okay. There you go. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, thank you. All right, Vice Chair O'Donnell.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Eric, to confirm, fees and taxes?
Yeah, taxes are confirmed. Fees were also paid.
Okay, thank you. And, so is this, Gabrielle Padilla?
Yes, hi, good afternoon.
Hi, we're hearing you well. Are you hearing us?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Gabriel Padilla. I am an engineer with Grady Consulting, and I will be presenting project today. The proposal is for a pool, in-ground pool, that's going to be outside of the 100-foot buffer, and it's also above the 9-foot elevation floodline. We added silt sock around the area that borders the wetland. You can see the wetland down here. And added a construction entrance to pretty much keep that area free of silt. That's pretty much it. We received some comments from Eric, which we referenced there was a loamer on the FEMA floodline, and we addressed that on note 3. And we also added the 200-foot outer riparian zone line, that it's outside of the lot, but it's nearby. And if anyone has any questions, I would answer them.
Your comments, Eric?
Yeah, so it's pretty, the pool is pretty straightforward in my view. Like Gabriel mentioned, he addressed the couple of comments that I had on the site plan when he initially submitted that, correcting the notes on the FEMA map and the riparian area. They did ask us to confirm the wetland boundaries as part of this determination. Bill and I were actually both out there back in November and did not have any issues with the delineation that was performed by John Zimmer. The pool is above the flood elevation, so I don't think we're really too concerned about that in this case either. And it is outside that 100-foot buffer. Kind of a side note on this parcel, we did receive a complaint regarding a bridge that spans the Green Harbor River, which is on a parcel owned by this homeowner, which is across from Earl Avenue. The bridge was noted during our site visit. I'm going to try and bring up a picture here quickly to show the commission. It doesn't really have any bearing on this project, but since it came in front of us around the same time, it might be prudent to include a special condition that this be addressed. I'll just bring up the bridge here. Basically, this bridge runs across the Green Harbor River, and I guess it was noticed by someone while they were kayaking down the river, and it provided an obstacle for their access. So that was the concern. I think we mentioned this briefly to the homeowner when we were confirming the wetland line. He didn't seem to be aware that it was there and didn't seem to have any issues with taking it out, but I think the commission might want to request that that happen within a specified time frame or before starting the work, or whatever the commission seems fit. There was also some pallets within the marsh area leading down to this bridge in that parcel across the street from the house. So that's all I have on this one.
These guys own 2 parcels, and they're sort of separated a little bit, and this is on the second parcel. So, getting that out of there would be, I think, a benefit. It's never been permitted, it's riverfront, and it's potentially a hazard, too, to other kayakers, which enjoy that river.
And also, just a quick note, that the parcel on the other side of the river is owned by Mass Audubon, and I got in touch with their property team, and they weren't aware of the bridge, and they didn't have any issue with having it removed, if that's what the commission chose to do.
Thank you, Eric. As far as the pool, I agree with that. I've been out there. I looked at the site today. We actually had this house in front of us for something else several years ago, so I'm familiar with the property. I had no issue with the pool, and I agree about the removal of the bridge. If we just I think this is the simplest way. I think this is a relatively new owner of this property. I think the bridge predates their ownership, but like some of these other properties we've dealt with lately, it needs to be removed. Other commissioners, your comments?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree.
In agreement.
In that case, Gabrielle, your client, would they be amenable to removing that bridge and those pallets?
I really don't have an answer for that right now. I would have to talk with them, but I wouldn't think it would be an issue.
It would seem to be the simplest way to move it forward, rather than going the enforcement route, which would be the next step, so.
Of course.
Like to open this up for public comments. I see nobody here present. Nobody on the Zoom meeting. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing, issue a positive determination 2A, confirming the wetland delineation, number 5 for the bylaw, and a negative determination number 3 with special conditions. Any other special conditions, Eric?
No,
Besides
just
the
the,
removal of the bridge and the pallets?
no, just the standard ones. Other than that, I think we probably just want to clarify whether this is to be done before the proposed work, or if there's a set number of days the commission wants to see.
Eric's got here within 90 days. That's pretty generous. Maybe within 90 days of issuance of this permit,
Sure.
you know?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think this time of year, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well done.
Art, second, Bill?
Yep, I caught
Unanimous?
that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gabe.
All right, thank you very much.
See you
Have a good day.
tomorrow. Are you guys gonna all join us tomorrow in Moraine Street with Gabe? Good.
I thought that was canceled.
I thought it was canceled.
I know, it got tricky, but it is not. I'll tell you
But
later.
you only sent a cancel, you didn't.
Yeah, we did send him a new one, right? No?
No.
Oh, boy. Boy, oh, boy. We'll talk about that later. We'll catch you guys.
Okay. Next up, new hearing in compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act. and the Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. A public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by Gerard Malia, 119 Monitor Road, Marshfield, to determine whether the work extending an existing deck depicted on the plans is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. And the hearing officer is Commissioner Carberry.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so this is a brand-new RDA. It is for a project that involves replacing a 4-foot by 9-foot deck and enlarging it to 6 feet by 9 feet over existing lawn. The property is land subject to coastal storm flowage, and it's an AE9 flood zone. Who's going to share the project with us? Anybody here to represent the project?
I can describe the work. If no
Okay,
one's
go
here to
ahead,
present
Eric.
it. So someone came into the office to talk about some work that they were currently applying for a building permit for. Basically, they're, as you said, replacing an existing deck, which is 4 by 9, with a 6 by 9 deck. When they came into the office, they were advised to file an RDA, as they were expanding a deck within land subject to coastal storm flowage and the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. There is no delineation for this wetland on a site plan provided by the applicant, but using aerial imagery, it's clear that the distance between the proposed deck location and the rear corner of the lot, which is yard, is over 50 feet. So it's at least 50 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland in the back. I think this is a pretty straightforward project, potentially bordering on being de minimis, and I don't have any issues with it going forward.
Okay,
That's all I have on this one.
all right. Commissioners, questions, comments? Seems to be a pretty straightforward
Yeah,
deck
sounds
enlargement
straightforward.
project over existing lawn. Anybody from the public that's here? Anybody online, on Zoom line? Okay, hearing none. Then I'd like to make a motion that we close the hearing with special conditions and issue a +5 determination for the bylaw and a -3 with special conditions that Eric will share with us.
These would just be the standard special conditions of this one.
Okay. All right, do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Who
the
seconded that?
deck.
I missed that. Joe Ring?
The ring.
Okay.
Okay, next up is 62 Marginal Street, SE 42 2954. This is a continued hearing, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Carberry.
Okay, 2 in a row, thank you very much. So this is an NOI that was begun on July 6, 21 originally started as a pier, a ramp, and a float. And this last revision is simply for a pier and a landing with no float and a couple ladders. It's for a 2-foot wide pier that's 528 feet long with an 8-foot by 8-foot landing at the end. A ladder that goes down to the tidal flats in the mud, and another ladder in the middle of the pier. Somebody from Grady here going to present the project for us. Is that you, Paul?
Yes, hello everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Paul Sieber from Grady Consulting. Since we met last, we submitted revised plans. The latest set of revisions are dated December 9th, 2021. As you mentioned, the previous design consisted of a ramp and float, which has since been removed. We are now proposing a 2-foot wide by 548-foot long elevated walkway supported by approximately 104 4x4 posts. At the end of the walkway, we are proposing an 8 by 8-foot landing with a removable set of stairs to access the water in the beach. The end of the walkway is now 118 feet from the channel and 138 feet from the closest mooring. So we've addressed any navigation or safety concerns from the harbor master. Access during construction will be granted through the existing footpath located in the rear of the property. We are not proposing any heavy machinery on the salt marsh. The posts will be driven using a pneumatic hammer attachment and compressor. All materials for the site will be stored in the upland portion of the site located behind the existing dwelling. I'll be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, thank you. Eric, Bill, comments from administrators?
Okay,
Yeah,
you want to
from-
give
I
a,
just got one quick comment, I guess. The only thing I really had on this one was just questioning whether the 8x8 landing was in line with the commission's regulations on a maximum of 4 feet of decking. But aside from that, I didn't really have any questions on this. I think Bill might have some others, and I think there were some recent comments from the harbor master.
Paul, did you see the Chapter 505 regulations, project specific on piers?
Project specific, what was that, Bill? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sorry, the mask and all. Did you read the section, the project-specific performance standards for piers in the revised regs, chapter, oh, you don't have to do that in the 505. We don't have that here.
No.
4 foot, so.
No.
So a reminder to myself and the commission, I think what we're doing here is, this was submitted 1 day before the regulations came out. We have had 3 revisions, so it's like a new project, but we've been told that we have got a permit here that meets the timeline for the revised regs. Okay, sorry about that, Paul, my bad. The other question I had was this, we know that they just submitted for the ZBA permit, which I sent out today. We just got it the other day. And that had been asked about back in the summer. The concept of what would constitute a complete filing at the time was brought up in a conversation with Attorney Brodsky and also Attorney Galvin when they were both here talking about it. And we were supposed to get a construction kind of sequence plan of some kind as well. I haven't seen that. And the question kind of arises to me now that we had asked for it, and did we have a complete plan back in or a submittal back in July or June when the question arose? And I think that's something that has been posed to town council, and I think we might want to consider that. That's something that might be a showstopper for this particular hearing, but once we get an answer, then we'll know what we have. In other words, you're supposed to seek all pertinent permits by the time you get the NOI going, okay? And that had not happened. Rick and I had met with Mrs. Lawson, I think early August, late July, and had brought that up, and we just got it here in December, and we've had 3 revisions. It's like a new project. So anyways, I sort of think that maybe you want to consider getting town council's concept of whether or not we had a complete filing at the time of the filing to see if this was filed and it's going to be under the revised regs or the prior regs. So I think that's something to consider. I think some people mentioned to me that they're wondering why there's no float and there's no ramp, and you have the bump out. So that leads the question and begs the question: would there be more coming later? Segmentation, in other words, might be something for the commission to either condition or be thinking about with regards to this, because it's not that we don't see these docks that don't have floats and piers or ramps. That does happen, but the question is, will there be more? And the harbor master also wanted to point out, to the benefit of the applicant, that there will be a Green Harbor dredge project coming up, and they might take advantage of that. So that's another permit that they would need to get if they did that. So you can see that there's potential for other permits coming along, and I think it should be made crystal clear that whether we have a request for amended order of conditions, which would be something minor, meeting policy 85-4, which is a Mass DEP policy, okay, and then you amend these original orders, or if you have to go with a brand new one, the case the dredge, or pushing this out further, that the revised regs, March 18, 2021, would be what rules on those. Now that means either the request for the amended order conditions, although the parent or original order conditions, we were told, has to be under the prior regs, the commission may just say that the revisions, that if they're minor under a request for amended, should take place underneath the 3/18/2021 regs, or a new NOI, definitely. So I think that should be stated someplace. I don't quite understand why the ladder and how you can secure it from causing damage. I mean, you know, if it breaks, it just, I've not seen this kind of configuration before, so I think the commission might want to ask some detailed questions about purpose, maintenance, and how that's going to be kept from becoming flotsam, et cetera, and become an issue. It's a unique approach. And then because there's a bump out and there's no ramp and no float, maybe you want to consider, the commission might want to consider, no boat can be, you know, secured to the pier, you know, overnight, something like that, 24-hour period of time. You get 2 tide cycles in there, or even 1 tide cycle, something like that, Rick, you know what I mean? So that we don't have anybody tying up to this thing. And they shouldn't be anchoring, and we've had that happen with Shanahan down the road once, and we kind of ended that by talking to him. I think that's almost it, Rick. The harbor master suggested, he said, look, I have given you a 2010 and I believe a 2015 plan of the mooring locations and the dredge survey, and he suggested that the correct mooring locations be shown on the final plan. Because if there's segmentation or anything comes up in the future, then what you had before in the very first presentation, the original plan, with the conflict with the commercial boat that was out there, might come up again. So as I've talked to Rick about this, and it's something that I think the commission might want to consider as well. So that's kind of a lot, but I gave you sort of a buffet of options.
Okay. All right. Well, the first thing I wanted to kind of clear up, when we started this morning, there were, at least on my list, when I was reviewing the drawings in the file, 3 items that were missing. One was harbor master comments and shellfish mitigation. We finally got comments from the harbor master this morning, who basically said there's no float, so there's no navigational issue, there's no safety issue, there's nothing that's going to impede the moorings in the Green Harbor Federal Channel, and there's no shellfish mitigation out there as well, so that's been cleared up. I'm still unclear as to whether or not we got any comments back from Mass DMF.
We did.
Get an email?
Yeah, what happened is we have had 3 correspondences. We had the original one that was tied to, I believe, the very first submittal. Then they had the 2 separate locations. You remember that? They were going to do a lot of walking. That didn't get reviewed. The November, I believe it did get reviewed. The November 8 version, I believe, did get reviewed, and they wrote a formal letter based on that. And then there was a 12-9 plan. I believe this is a 12-9 plan.
Yep.
And then we got an email compared to that. So Paul had pushed those 2 out, and he gotten DMF. I don't think we need to take them back to the 2 that are now moot, those 2 locations that are separated. I think we're okay with that. But technically, we should add DMF letters along the way, and they don't want this either. They don't want to see this 15 times. New projects almost, you know. So we have 3, and they didn't have any significant comments. Do you recall any?
I didn't see the most recent email.
Yeah.
The comments on the previous letter
They're
that
going to
they
be in
had
the Google Drive on there.
were that the
So I can comment on it if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, help.
So basically, the last comments from DMF we got in the November 8th plan was that they didn't like the 8x8 foot platform being over the salt marsh in regards to the shading. So what we did is we extended it past the salt marsh so it wouldn't impact the salt marsh as far as shading concerns. They were okay with that.
Okay.
and we do have the email saying that they're okay with the revised
all right.
plan.
So there were no missing items, everything is.
Yeah, well, that list isn't missing. I just gave you a
That list is,
smorgasbord.
that list's cool. So I guess I have 4 other topics or questions that I'd like to lead the commission through and get your help on, Paul. The first is simple and basic curiosity. What are the motivations behind building a pier walkway that's only 2 feet wide? when normally people do 3 feet or 4 feet wide.
Right. So
May I
basically,
answer that?
Who's this?
Hey, so this is Ken Lawson.
Okay,
Oh.
hi
Would it be
Ken.
easier if I just answered that?
Ken, yeah, just can you give us your
Sure.
address? We kind of know, but it's for the record, just to be formal.
Sure. At 62 Marginal Street.
Much obliged. You carry on, sir.
Yeah, we're trying to put in the most minimal impact for both ourselves, the marsh, and our neighbors getting out there. And so I'm not planning on riding a bicycle out there. We're just trying to walk out there and leave kind of what you see on a lot of marshes around here, which is just essentially a footpath, just barely raised in platform fashion to be able to get out there and access the water and the beach. And that's it. So we've been sort of steadily trying to put in the smallest, least amount of impact that we could come up with.
Okay,
That's all.
okay. No, that's good. And it also means that that 500-foot pier, Ken, is going to be less obtrusive for you and your neighbors to look at it out there because it's only going to be 3 feet above the marsh instead of 4 feet to make the 1 to 1.5. So, okay. That was just,
Exactly.
that was kind of just a curiosity question that I had. The next one is, you know, I think most of us here on the commission have been watching these plans come along and looking at the current plans, kind of come to the conclusion that there's likely to be a Plan B here, that maybe you folks go to try to get permitted, which will involve another extension of a pier and trying to get out to the river, and maybe hoping that when the dredging project gets done in Green Harbor, which the Army Corps of Engineers, according to the harbor master, is supposed to conduct sometime in 2022, that maybe there'll be enough water out there for a float. And I think the harbor master intimated that you know, you could always as well encourage or look at some private dredging to try to find a spot where you would have 2.5 feet of water, you know, under that float at mean low water. But if there is a Plan B and a second segment to this whole thing, we've been trying to get some legal counsel from town council here relative to segmentation and how does it affect old regs versus new regs and those sorts of things, because the difference is from a design standpoint, old regs to new regs. You know, within this project today, because it started and we were wrong, we got this wrong when we started, it's going under old regs now, right? Because it was filed before the new regs went into play. But if there's a Plan B or another segment that's done here in a year or two from now, we don't know if that falls under new regs or old regs. And maybe we have to address that sort of thing then, and not now. But it's a question that I don't have any information or an answer to.
Okay, can I answer?
Sure.
As best I can?
Sure.
We're barely getting through Plan A. There's no Plan B. I don't really anticipate that the dredging would change the channel dramatically, and you'd still end up with the steep slope there for a boat. And for us, it would either be, you know, out into the deep channel. 2.5 feet isn't going to be worth it. So, I mean, I know you can't take people at their word probably at this format, and if you need to put something in there, like you would for any homeowner, that would be fine. But there's no Plan B.
Okay. All right. I'm a little surprised, but okay. Okay, I hear
I don't
you.
want to let anybody down, but Plan A is costly enough.
Yeah, and the very last issue I have for my fellow commissioners and Paul and Ken, legal counsel had originally advised us that this project was going to be heard under the new regs that we worked pretty hard on putting in place, and we were told and discovered in the middle of one of the last hearings that no, old regs are going to be applied. Town council gave us a different direction on that. But he said the only way that new regs would be applied would be if the filing was not done complete, meaning all of the permits that are required were not sought like ZBA and so forth. And ZBA got in touch with us and let us know that an application for a variance at ZBA was filed yesterday. So I feel like I'm missing a little information as well in terms of, was that original NOI filed, was it a complete file
Complete, yeah.
or not? I guess if there's no Plan B, it doesn't really matter, right? But I'm still missing some information as far as that's concerned.
Plus, we don't know that the ZBA may change it. It doesn't typically, but there may be some configuration, and you want the plans to match as best as possible. Otherwise, when they build it, they move it, and guess what's going to happen? Request for amended order of conditions. We've done that at Bourne Park. The DEP moved somebody, and then they moved themselves out. There were 2 moves, and they had to come back for a request for amended order of conditions. So
Yeah.
it's almost to their benefit to wait till that is cleared up with town council. We got an answer, and see a little bit more on what ZBA is going to do. I don't know if it'll be immediate or if it'll take a little while, but that might be beneficial to see what's going on.
You think if,
Comment, could I, sorry.
Go ahead.
Could I
I'm sorry.
comment? Could I comment on that real quick?
Yes, sir.
Basically, we see on these projects, these dock projects, the majority of the revisions are done from a conservation standpoint. From ZBA, the only requirement for the dock project is a special permit because it's in the coastal wetlands district, and also a variance because your accessory structure. There's no really changes that we anticipate from zoning because there's really not much required from a zoning standpoint. It's mainly from conservation. So that's why we waited to file, because we knew there was going to be many revisions and we wanted to file the final plan with ZBA.
So Paul, just for the record, okay, 310 CMR 10.05, dig in there. It says you need to seek all pertinent permits during the NOI process. Please do that in the future, okay?
Yeah, I guess I'm still kind of feeling like the segmentation thing, should that happen, I'd kind of like to get an answer back from town council on, what the guidance is going to be with that. And this complete filing thing with, applying for seeking all permits and get clarification on that.
You're the authorizing authority at the end of it. Bob will give you an opinion. You can hear from lawyers representing applicants or wherever. You can hear suggestions from Eric and me. But you guys end up making the decisions, and you can work in special conditions that satisfy that, and it's been done before. And so long as there's cooperation in all the parties, that's usually the best thing that can outcome of it.
Is there a way we could work those into special conditions?
Yeah, we could, and we could get that in the special conditions and say that segmentation is not permitted under this permit. That forces a new permit. And that's that section right there. So but I think that unless it's truly really minor, because another permit moves you like ZBA, which Paul's just said in his experience, he's got deep experience, will not likely happen, then they can always come back with requests for amended or conditions for something minor, but not an extension and a segmentation out into the further into the river.
Art?
Yeah, so if we had the conditions that if there is segmentation, if they come back with another one, it would be under the new regs. Specifically put that in.
Okay.
I'm just offering that up.
I think so.
How's that sound to you, Mr. Lawson?
That makes total sense.
Okay.
Oh,
I was going to say, I would hate to put something in place that was forever into the future if we sold the property, 20 years from now. But if it would just entail starting over at some future date for anybody doing it, they'd have to bring it to this group to be reviewed and not consider it sort of, under some prior rules. That seems fine.
Okay, so
with this design as it stands now, what does not conform to the new rules?
the bump out.
We don't have anything specific that,
Bump
around
out.
bump outs?
Mhm.
Or the new rules, I guess, do say 4 foot.
wide.
Yeah,
And there's no piles into the.
no piles in the river, no
Yeah.
shoes on the floats.
Well, that's
200,
all.
there's no float, so.
So that's what I'm saying, is what, other than the size of the bump out, the 8x8, that's the only thing.
That's the only thing, yeah. Everything
What's
else,
supporting the bump out though beyond the marsh there? Isn't that piles? I'm not looking at it right now from a side view. Isn't it piles underneath?
piles underneath.
Sorry, I'm not looking at it right
Well,
now.
what's under the 8x8?
It's 4x4 posts.
Okay.
But your new regs do allow for piles, there's still piles in the North River, correct?
No, it's no piles in the river, period. Yeah, and then,
And how would you ever have a dock if you can't put piles in the river?
Helical screws in the river.
so there's what do you call it? There's fixed ramps with, that are secured to the float. We've had a couple of those happen. People use helical piles like Rick just said, and they're,
Screws.
and then you have, not shoes, but, you have, the concrete blocks too, and typically it's no chains on the bottom. So,
But that's for the float itself. So how would you extend the dock out to the water if you can't put any sort of
Well,
structure to support it?
so in this case, you'd have a problem, but in some cases, you don't have that problem. So that's a case-by-case basis, Paul. I think you wouldn't reach water indefinitely with this one because it's so far out, as you know. So you would have to take this would have to go out further into the river system in order to get deep enough water or dredge.
Yeah,
Let's just talk about this one and make it easier.
Yeah,
We've
not
got
to be
70 docks on our minds.
not to be prescriptive, Paul, because that's not what we do here, but what people have been doing. Keith Wallow over in Situate has come up, who's building a lot of piers and docks in the North River and South River lately, has devised a very beefy mechanical connection between the end of the gangway, and it fits into a very secure metal aluminum attachment on the float itself that
Yeah.
provides some additional stability. And then that coupled, if the current is really bad, they use helical screws in the river. But there have been several docks that he's just used this mechanical attachment, and it's held up really well just by itself.
So there's also some people on the North River on some of the bends, Paul, and they use crossbars and stuff like that, and they'll even use lines to secure it so it stays in place. So it can be done. It's, it has to be constantly tethered and reset, but it can be done. But that's not the objective here to design your docks. You see you've got something that's going on beyond the salt marsh, and sort of that wouldn't be consistent here. We've got the old prior regs, and this would be more likely acceptable. So there's nowhere to deny on it because the details on the docks weren't there that we have now.
Yeah. The only other thing that's come up with projects like this, there was some talk about the ladders.
Yeah, Rick, I was going to ask a
Yeah,
question about the ladders.
yeah.
Bill and I had a conversation about some other projects a month or so ago with DEP about projects like this and docks and piers specifically, and we were kind of told that they're really not in favor of ladders, at any point in the to provide access down where the marsh can get walked on and damaged necessarily. But there's nothing in the regs that says that somebody couldn't have a ladder or two. So I don't.
What
Right.
are the ladders for?
So we're required to have public access over the walkway. Basically, you're either required to have at least 5 feet of clearance underneath the walkway at high tide, or you need to have provided some sort of other means of access over the walkway.
That's
So
okay.
that's what the ladders are for.
What's that?
Colonial ordinances to allow for fishing and fowling.
I guess colonial ordinances. Yeah.
I think that's
Exactly.
it.
Probably true.
No, it is along those lines.
All right. Commissioners, any other comments, suggestions, questions?
I think the most important thing is just to condition it that any further expansion comes under the new rules.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah. How about the public? Anybody here from the public that would like to speak on this behalf?
Hi,
Yes, can you introduce yourself, please?
sure. My name is Mary Murphy. I live at 252 Ocean Street. And first of all, I want to thank every single one of you on this board because I think you're awesome
Oh.
in the work that you do here. My question isn't necessarily on the project and the pier, but I did hear Bill, you talking about dredging. I'm saying putting it in the dredging site perhaps over at the public.
Yes, what the harbor master's comments were, and we'll keep it tight to this, was that there was a Green Harbor dredging project coming up. The exact timing, I don't have that. They're in the midst of starting the permitting. And in that venue, there's quite a bit of tidal mud flats here. And one of the problems that this particular dock has is it doesn't have deep enough conditions to allow water to be present to allow a float or a ramp right from the salt marsh. It has to go way out, and it conflicts with another boat that's out there. So that was not acceptable, and they revised. So what's being said is when they dredge at the same time, they could benefit personally. They'd have to pay privately to do their portion of it to get deep enough water. But the applicant, the Lawsons, have expressed, at least now, that they're not interested in that. And we've asked them that question, what's Plan B? They're not interested in the dredging. They're not interested in going out further. They want to have a minimal project. It all ties in. It makes sense. The commission has clear and convincing information that makes some sense. So that's how that dovetails there. And that's from the harbor master.
Okay, so the dredging or the DSA doesn't have any. Perfect.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the room? In the public? Anybody online on the Zoom call? Okay. All right, then I think we're at a conclusion here. Then I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and permit the project with special conditions that mostly apply to the old regs in terms of the way we talk about docks, because this falls under the old regs, but with a new special condition that we write in that should there be segmentation or additional project work on this particular dock, that a new notice of intent is required, and that the local new regulations for docks and piers in the town of Marshfield will apply.
Is it the then current regulations?
The now current regulations.
How about the then current,
Well,
whenever they
yeah.
apply?
If they change in the future.
Yeah, if we change them.
Or if they change in the future, yes.
So,
Should we read the conditions?
I think so. Just to make it clear, the Lawsons have worked hard, Paul's worked hard, the commission's worked hard. It's worth the time.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Commissioners, okay?
Yep.
All right, so, Mr. Lawson and Paul, I'm going to read you the conditions that the commission has prepared through us. The DO dock construction notes, waterways projects 34-7Gs, fees applied. Harbor master will be the overseer of any applicable fees. We have to put that in there in case there's ever a float involved. Applicants are required to pay for relocation of moorings. That's unapplicable. Addition is needed, All right, D1, before commencing the proposed work, register both sets of orders, state and town, with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds and provide evidence to the Conservation Office. Post the Mass DEP sign and provide evidence to the Conservation Office. Obtain all subsequent permits, local, state, and federal, such as Marshfield Bylaw Department, Building Department, the Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals, Marshfield Harbor Master's Office, the Marshfield Department of Environmental Protection, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and any other pertinent permits. Applicant shall observe 310 CMR 10.05 requirements that no work shall commence until all applicable administrative appeals have elapsed. Shellfish mitigation is out. Per 780 CMR Section 105.8, applicants shall notify the building official at least one business day before the start of the work to verify all D1 conditions have been met prior to the commencement of the work. Coordinate pre-construction site meeting with conservation administrator or agent, 2-week advance notice to the harbor master, and file forms, plans, including safety plan. DO, during the construction of the proposed work, ensure that best management practices are followed, maintain communications with the harbor master throughout the work. No metal chains are to be used to secure the float or any other, you don't have a float, so we'll get that out of there. 1-inch spacing between boards on catwalk and dock is required. No mechanical wheeled nor tracked equipment that will damage the salt marsh or tidal flats is to be utilized. We can tell you about some new innovations that some of the builders have had, Mr. Lawson, when you get to that stage. It could really help your salt marsh stay healthy. All construction materials and debris shall be removed from the work site at the conclusion of the workday. This is to prevent any materials or debris from ending up in the wetland resource area or river. Construction may be accomplished from a barge or boat operating at least 2 feet of water. You're not going to have that, so I'm going to take that out. Gotcha. And then the special condition, there should be no segmentation further into the river, period. Any new work that works closer into the resource area shall require the filing of a request for amended order of conditions or a new notice of intent under the revised regulations 3/18/2021 or current, more current. Post-construction proposed work D3, work ongoing conditions, no grounding of floats or boats on tidal flats. They don't have that, so that comes out. You're not going to have a boat, so no prop wash of riverbed. No storing of fuel on dock, no fueling of vessels from dock. We'll keep that because tying up of boats is also going to come up. No dragging the float across. You don't have a float. No chemical spraying in the resource area. Periodic maintenance of floats and pilings. You don't have floats. Periodic maintenance of pilings, securing system to assure alignment within the approved scope of these orders. Repair for safety reasons within approved scope of these orders. Option to post a permanent no-wake sign on the end of the pier facing the river. No boat can be secured to the pier. This is a question to the commission. They're going to have enough water periodically. Friends will come for part of the tide or something. How do we deal with that? Is it for beyond, unless there's adequate water?
They can put a boat there as long as there's adequate water.
Okay, secured to the pier unless there is 2.5 feet of water underneath.
Yeah. But we don't want a boat sitting on the mud,
On the mud.
Okay.
hooked up to the
Okay.
ladder or the float.
All right, so what I'm going to do is go back and no grounding of boats on tidal flats or river bottom, no prop wash riverbed because they might have a visiting boat. So we'll bring that back. We'll bring that one back online. Okay, and then the length of the seaward. Okay. The length of the seaward face of the pier. This is going to be tricky. Is a limiting factor the number of vessels allowed to remain on the pier. I don't like that at all. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to go back and then there should be no segmentation further into the river. Any further segmentation into the resource area within the river shall require the filing of a request for amended order of conditions or a new notice of intent that will be subject to the Chapter 505 revised 3/18/2021 or most current.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Got that?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Mr. and Mrs. Lawson, congratulations. Paul Seberg, thank you for your diligence, doing plans
Thanks,
behind the
everyone.
scenes 3 or 4 times. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you for your
Second
time.
by Bert. Who's the second? Bert?
You bet.
Joe was the second? Okay, you're on fire tonight, Joe.
Thank you, everyone, and special thanks to Commissioner Carberry for all his.
You always give me the tough ones.
You're the dock guy. All right.
Yeah.
So, scheduled continued hearings.
Yeah, and you're starting on, starting back. You got 5 of them,
Yep,
so
I
you're
got
gonna
'em.
start them on page
Yep.
8.
Okay, 12 Branch Street, raise and rebuild single-family home, SE 422951. The applicant requested a continuation to January 18th, 2022 in writing on October 28th, 2021. I move that we vote to continue to the 1/18/2022 public meeting as per the written request of the applicant. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
274 Foster Avenue, elevate a single-family home, SE 422958. The applicant's representative requested a continuation to the January 18th, 2022 meeting in writing on November 16th, 21. I move that we vote to continue the 118, I move that we vote to continue to the 1/18/2022 public meeting as per the written request of the applicant's representative. May I have a second?
Second?
Okay, Bert on that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
202 Moraine Street, the Sealand Corp., SE 422960. The applicant's representative requested a continuation to the January 18th, 2022 meeting during the December 7th, 2021 public meeting. I move that we vote to continue to January 18th, 2022 public meeting as per the request of the applicant's representative. May I have a second?
Second?
Bert.
All in favor?
Aye.
72 Bay Ave, SE 422754 amended. We have received no further communication on this one. So do we go to a date certain, or?
Well, you could do a denial without prejudice also. They have not provided the data that's been requested. They've missed the deadline, and so technically you could do that, and you could push it out to the next meeting, because I don't think we received anything, did we?
No, and we've been reaching out proactively to try and get an answer on this one, but I think we would need to set a date for it at the least.
And this is not like Rick, he's the high professional. We always praise him. I always praise him when he comes in, because he does a great job,
Yeah, he
so it's
does a
very
great job,
uncommon.
so is-
I don't want to, I don't want to be too flexible, but at DWAP one is,
Was Rick sick for a while?
he could be, you know,
He was out sick prior to the last meeting.
I would like to have heard from him. I don't know where he is, but there's been tough times. We have seen what's going on with COVID. We were gentle when we had the storms recently with things. I just think the message needs to get back that they need to do something, and otherwise they're going to get denial without prejudice right out of here, 1, but 2, and 3 if they...
Rick Servant. How do
Page
people
10.
feel about a DWAP on this one?
I would go with a DWAP, especially it's the first time.
Yeah,
It's only one.
okay.
That's fine.
I might think twice if it was higher.
If we were getting closer, but,
Okay,
They'll never get the 2 or 3, not with Rick.
no.
he always comes through.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a denial without prejudice.
Count 1.
Count 1. And I move that we vote to continue 72 Bay Avenue, SE 422754 amended to the
4th of January.
January 4th,
We could help him out.
2022.
We could help him out. Well, January 4th, just to cover, because,
Well, yeah, if they wanna get in touch and change that, we
right,
can.
we'll leave it to them.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. And lastly,
You need to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. May I have a second?
Second?
All
Okay,
in
all right.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, that was Art Leggy for second, and that's a 5-0.
And,
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
and then we are on 76 Carolyn Circle, Gomes, SE 422950. We received notice, was it today, that they wish to continue? Yesterday, after being informed that they needed to continue, but they wanted to press forward. So I would recommend that this was also a denial without prejudice.
Yes.
Any objections? No. Okay. So this is a denial without prejudice.
Count 1.
And-
Count 1.
Count 1. And I move that we vote to continue SE 422950 to, did they ask for a
January
date,
the
Eric?
4th.
Oh,
They asked for January 4th? Okay,
that works.
January 4th, 2022 meeting. May I have a second?
Second?
Rick.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's that. So somebody is calling out, and they didn't get you recognized me, but I'm just gonna deal with it. When you want to talk with the chair now, it's on the top of the second page, 274-5A. A means amended. Hanlon, 72 Bay Avenue, okay? Yep.
Okay, so now we are on to requests for certificates of compliance and extensions. The first is SE 42-1836, Fontana, 4 House Brook Road. This was issued in 2004 for an in-ground pool. A letter stating substantial compliance with the proposed drawings and an as-built site plan were received from Jen Hannon, RPE Atlantic Coast Engineering. However, special condition F of the OOCs stated that the pool and apron shall not be located closer than 26 feet from the wetland line. The as-built site plan shows that the apron is as close as 20.65 feet from the wetland. However, only a corner of the apron was built closer than permitted. Approximately 35 square feet of impervious coverage is within the 25 feet as a result. This is disappointing that the applicant's representative, who has experience with Marshfield Conservation Commission submittals, did not call this out in the letter submitted. I would like that to be noted for the record. Eric, you visited the site on December 14th and confirmed that the as-built site plan reflects the current conditions.
Yes?
I did, yes.
No discrepancies? Okay. We may consider that the conservation markers be put up along the fence, is that along the 25-foot?
Yeah, basically, I was just saying if the commission's looking for some form of mitigation for encroachment on that 26-foot requirement, conservation markers along the fence would be something that they could consider.
Okay, that's an option.
Is this just a corner of the patio?
Yes.
Like, you have a picture?
Yeah, I can pull up the site plan.
How many
Essentially,
square feet is it
roughly 35 square feet, something like
35.
that.
on the encroachment?
Yeah, he's saying about,
Commission,
no, you're not recognized yet. Wait 1 second, okay? This is not an open session. You have to talk to the chair and get her okay, okay? Thank you.
Sure, I'd like to provide a narrative if that's okay.
Talk to the chair.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to provide a narrative if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, all commission members. So, as explained, this particular request for certificate of compliance goes back 17 years. If you look at the original drawing, which was the proposed from 17 years ago, you'll see where the BVW line was denoted. And if you scale on there, the dimension relative to where the proposed pool was going to go, and you compare it to what is there now, it's very evident that the wetlands line has moved 6 feet closer to the pool. So, if you compare the two, it's not that anything egregious or overbuilding took place. It's simply the fact that the wetlands line over 17 years has grown closer towards the pool. And so, if the owners at the time, back in 2005 when it was completed, had done an as-built, it would have been compliant and outside the 25-foot buffer. However, it's 17 years later now. New owners just purchased this in the last couple months, and when they went to close, it wasn't a clear and free title, and so the open order conditions came up, and Stiles Law engaged us to do an as-built and a COC, and we identified it as clearly and honestly as we could, which shows that now it's inside the 25-foot buffer. It's just about 21 feet, just a little bit under 21 feet. So we respectfully request that the commission understand that it's been 17 years. If this had been done properly in 2005, there really would be no issue. The pool size matches what was proposed, and again, it's the fact that the wetlands has encroached closer towards the pool area.
So if I could chime in.
Open up any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chime in.
Jed.
It's really Eric's, but I wanted to say something. Jed, we really rely on people like you to say what you just said in the letters. There was a difference, and it's better when you show that. We have that happen many times with other engineers, and that helps out with couching the entire messaging to the commission. When we have to go out and discover and look into it, it makes it more difficult, and it makes it seem like there might be something deliberate going on here. So it's always better for you to call it out and not give us a letter saying that it's in substantial conformance, but rather to say it's close to it and explain what you just explained to us in a short, concise way. And that will go a lot farther, and it helps out the commission with their discretionary authority and their capacity to show flexibility. Eric, you got it, though.
I'm in agreement with what Eric suggested. I think
Markers?
mitigation with markers is probably the,
And they just go on the existing fence.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
provide the markers
That's
for
fine,
free, so
'cause
we're not
I
asking for
think
much.
this explanation, I mean, I think it was built according to plan
Yeah.
when it was
Right.
built.
the lawyers missed it, right? The homeowners didn't, and that's unfortunate.
What happened a lot was the aprons. They got further out too, and that did happen a lot.
Yeah.
So they never got accounted for. They looked at the pool but not the aprons.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we got extra cement, and they pour, and that's
Yeah.
what goes on. So these messages, this is a very tough area because there's been a tremendous encroachment along this
Yeah.
particular road. So each time we have something, we have a new owner, we need to educate them up so that they know what's going on, so they don't go further. So
Yeah.
I think your markers will be good, but do you want an as-built that's updated with that so that you have that on there permanently? Because that's been something that's been very important to the Concom, is to have these with as-builts. You can just call it out and have them put them up, but then we're chasing them. Eric or I have to go out and make sure that they put them up.
I'll put an as-built with a cover letter that explains the encroachment. The
And
movement
markers,
And the markers, yeah.
especially as the wetland is moving closer.
Right.
That's good too.
That addresses the question.
Yeah,
I think that's the simplest way to do it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many markers does the commission want?
What do
It's
you
just
think,
on the
Eric?
fence.
Three or
so-
four
I know,
would be
but how many
fine.
you
You
want?
just space them out along. Three's probably fine.
Jed, can you get a new as-built by Friday at 12 noon to Eric?
I'm sorry, can you explain what you're looking for? You want a new as-built with what? Because
Showing the
so that the
location of,
as-built we have reflects what's there.
right.
So
If
we're-
the as-built got the fence on it,
It does.
then
Yes.
all you gotta do is make a note.
What happens
Markers.
typically,
Conservation markers.
They want the 3 markers along the fence,
Shown
conservation
on the
markers, just
as-built.
on the as-built.
Okay, and the markers need, verbiage-wise, what do those need to, what do they
just
need
put
to
the
say?
markers on.
We have the markers
We'll
here.
give you the markers.
It's just it's a conservation, do not disturb wetland resource area.
You'll put them
marker.
on a designated
2-inch
location on the fence. Sorry, Eric. He's not hearing on both of us.
Okay, no, understood. So if, presumably the homeowner's fine with that, are you folks willing to, issue the certificate of compliance if they're okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
it would have ongoing conditions that there will be no further encroachment beyond that. The fence is currently deterrent, but when that falls down, or if it gets torn down and somebody wants to go further down, there'll be an as-built, they'll be tied to a recorded certificate of compliance, citing that as-built, so it'll get found and somebody will trace it back. So there'll be a tail,
Understood.
yeah, that's a tailor.
Absolutely.
So you got that, just the way you did the great presentation further. You can work with Eric to figure out where the locations go, and then
Okay.
get that done by 12 noon Friday. That should be easy, you know?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
All right, good
Thank you
solution.
for-
Good
Thank you for
solution.
understanding.
Very good.
All right, in
So
that
we're cleaning
case-
up the lawyer's mess, right? Hope there's no lawyers in here.
Exactly.
Bill, you're not a lawyer, are you?
Like the lawyers,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
I move that we vote to issue a complete COC for SE 421836 with ongoing conditions,
As per the as-built.
as per the as-built, to be received by Friday, December 24th.
Right, we're gonna want the Friday date, okay, Jed? Okay, so to make it easier. Jed?
Yeah, as long as Eric, do you have time this week to meet over there with the
Friday's a
markers?
holiday, isn't it?
Yeah, we can. I'm pretty sure we can work this
Thursday's
out
a
by
holiday.
email or over the phone tomorrow.
Are you
You
guys,
don't, you
all
don't
right,
need to
great.
visit.
We have a small problem, there's
wait a
holidays.
minute, holiday,
How about Monday at 12 noon?
I'm fine with
I'm
that.
away all next week, but I think we can certainly get it done by Thursday. Eric and I can coordinate, not a problem.
Thursday at 12
Thursday.
noon, okay. Very good, we close early on Thursday, just FYI,
Call
okay?
Jed tomorrow and we can work it out.
Okay, so we'll get that straightened out, and then we'll prepare it as per your plan of record, okay, your as-built, and we'll make the ongoing conditions part of the language in the COC. and it'll be forever internal, okay, with the deed of records.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jed.
Okay, SE 422586, Marshfield Yacht Club, 11 Ridge Road.
I need to recuse, I'm a club
Oh,
member.
oh, okay, yep,
I have to recuse because I'm in a butter.
okay.
Wait a minute.
Do we then make a quorum?
How are you in a butter? You're over 100 feet away. Let me ask you this. Did you get
I don't have a financial interest, or nor am I a
No,
member
that's
of
true,
it.
but you should be over 100 feet away.
Yeah, it's more than 100 feet, but not much
So,
more.
did you, when Copenrad, that's an RDA though. Well, you're gotta go out, Bert, because you got a conflict. If you do that, we don't have a quorum, and that's a complication, so,
Then I'll stay.
well, no, you can't just stay. So we have to figure out if you're within 100 feet. You're in a butter if you're within 100 feet.
Should we measure this on?
Yeah, you could do that, but then somebody will say that the assessors did not provide this, so let's hope it's over 100 feet. Did you get when
I did not get a butters letters.
when Salamondo came forward, right, and had all those, did you get that?
Yep,
Okay. Salamondo's closer than the yacht club.
yep.
Okay. So we gotta figure that out.
I'm gonna.
Troublemaker.
Well, I can tell you this, it's got tolling, so it really doesn't matter. They were gonna pull it anyways, because they've got 2 days of tolling to help them, so, you know, if this becomes problematic, then,
Probably more than it's probably 2 or 3 base paths to the end of the yacht club property.
he's at 1190. And the yacht club's at 11 Ridge. Take the closest point. No, is that the closest point? Do they own the parking lot?
It's actually 1190.
Is this part of their?
I don't know.
That's the parking lot.
You have to click that thing off to get the,
Who owns the parking lot?
Oh, not the park. You gotta be, on the yellow line, just to the right of the 176. So it's not the parking lot.
we're being safe rather than sorry. It looks to me like you have 188 to the parking lot.
So I'm good to stay.
So, well, yeah, but I think, you know, they were gonna pull this anyways because they have 462 days of tolling applied also. So he was ready to just pull it, you know, today because of that. In other words, it hasn't expired. And it won't expire until March 16, 2022, based on the tolling, which wasn't clear at the time because we were waiting for some answers from town council. Town council stepped in and provided that information. So I just thought I'd sprinkle that on this just a little bit. You know, I think you're safe, clearly 200 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, the assessor didn't call this out.
Didn't call,
But
yeah.
this is not an open notice of intent or a public hearing.
Right,
It's
it's
the closed portion, it's business, and it's in a different place, so you actually don't need to worry about that as much, but thank you for being so careful on this.
Okay, so we have learned, well, let me go back to the beginning. The original orders were issued in 2015 and extended in 2018 to December 9th, 2021. They requested an extension on December 8th. Now, under the Emergency Act, sign that. If someone has subject to and has the benefit of an approval issued by a state permitting agency before March 10th, 2020, the start of the state of emergency, the approval states that it will expire on July 1st, 2021, i.e. after the state of emergency. Does this approval benefit from the tolling provisions of the COVID-19 Order Number 42? And the answer is yes. The tolling provisions of COVID-19 Order Number 42 apply to approvals that have a stated expiration date that occurs after the end of the state of emergency, as long as the approval was issued prior to March 10th, 2020. The new expiration date should be calculated by adding 462 days, the number of days in the state of emergency, to the original expiration date. So we have 462 days added to December 9th, 2021, before this is up for an extension.
So they're early, because it looked like if you just did not include tolling, they needed to get their permit extended. And then we looked at this because there was a period of time where there was a gap, okay, in between today and tomorrow when it gets issued, if it gets issued and approved. And so the question was, you know, what do you do about that? How do you tackle that? So we went to town council, we asked the questions. Craig just gave the municipal, but the state also provides guidance on its permit, and technically the 294 overlaps 505, 310 CMR 10.0, and also 131 Chapter 40. So they all kind of merge together in a way, but it's its own jurisdiction. It's just coordinated through the town unless there's some discrepancies. And under the scenario that Craig was just explaining, they have question 2 on their guidance, which is, I can't read this, June 14, 2021, joint guidance on permit tolling following the end of the state of emergency. It fits in with Q2, which does that. It says basically if you had a permit that was filed before March 10, 2022, and it was still active after after the emergency, then it would benefit from the tolling process during that entire period of time. So this one had been originally issued on, let's see, 12/9/2015, and it was then extended to 12/9/2021, which is one we're dealing with here, and then it tolled 462 more days. So technically, they don't have to do anything right now. But they're trying to do the right thing and just get this done and wrap this up. And my understanding is that the permit will be closing out and they aren't going to be using it a whole lot more. However, ongoing conditions might be a thing that they want to consider with the COC when they get to that point, certificate of compliance. So, you know, they're told out. They could pull it, and he thought about pulling it. I said, well, we'll see what the commission says tonight.
But, I mean, there's no point in voting to issue a one-year extension because
Yeah,
they have,
yeah. They have the tolling, but.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
so
It's up to the commission, yeah.
we don't have to do
What are we
anything.
trying to do?
Well, you extend, technically, so the permit expired just in the real world, 12/9/2021, but we lived in the COVID world where we have an emergency
understand, but
and it
what-
created tolling. So,
What's our action here?
so it's 1 of 2.
I don't think we need to take an action.
Right.
But say what you're
Well,
going
the
to
one
say.
action is no action, and because we have the tolling, we've vetted that out. And then the other action is to approve this, which doesn't need to get done, and you know, then it's still accurate. So either one seems to work.
Seems to me it's a catch-22. You don't do anything. I mean, both of these negate each other.
Well, I think when they
Because
came, they
because
realized they were expiring, they were unaware
Right.
of the tolling provision.
No, I got
Yeah,
But we don't have to do anything.
no.
Right. Because it benefits from tolling.
Well, the tolling gives
The
them a
tolling-
little more time than a one-year extension.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
All right, are we good with that?
Yeah.
Mrs. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes?
So, and I understand what you're going through and you're gonna pull that and there's no action here, but I do have a question for the Conservation Committee as it relates to the DSA site, and in particular to the letter that I had provided, from 2004 to the DEP, which explained clearly that there is a cap related to that DSA site, and I'm wondering if anyone's tracking that.
I don't think anyone here is capable of answering that.
Okay, who would I follow
That's-
up with? Or
that's
maybe
not-
Bill?
You know, I don't know who would be responsible for that, but that's not,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Conservation Committee, which is also considered COMCOM, right?
Mhm.
You guys give the approval to dump in the wetland there, in that DSA site, which now is no longer a wetland because we have dumped and now it's an upland.
We don't get approval to dump there.
Oh, I thought the Conservation
People who
Committee.
need to dump there come through us as part of the permitting.
The permit process, right, so I'm
Right.
questioning, as a part of that permit process, we know there's 80,000, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the one that stated it in the meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. There is a cap that the DEP has set forth back in 2004, and so my question to Conservation is, who is tracking the amount of material that gets put into that DSA area so that we can, at some point in time, cap it?
I would check with DPW.
Actually,
Or do you-
I would propose to you, Madam Chair, that this isn't pertinent to this particular.
It is not.
It is pertinent to the conversation that we had before with the Murphys and Eric and you and I. And we can have a meeting and discuss that at an appropriate time, but we shouldn't be taking up the public's time or going off.
We can't answer that
Okay,
question.
I'm just curious, as the Conservation Committee approves additional DSA material going there, I was just thinking as a part of that approval process, you would say, all right, well, that's 10,000 of the 80,000. You know, I'm making this up.
That's
but
not
that
our
would not be your
jurisdiction.
area.
That's not our jurisdiction.
Okay.
I'm just asking now from my own, would that be something for business? I mean, if we give
You're
approval
technically
to
in.
dump this, that's a very good point she's bringing up. Who's tracking this and what?
Right.
And
Well, you know, we permit it so that
if we permitted it.
it is an option to dump there. Often they go to the offshore,
Right,
you know,
right.
it's not cast in
So
stone
what
that they're
happens,
gonna
to
come to
answer your question,
DSA.
because we got to get back to the extension.
Right.
Stay laser focused on that, is that any permit that comes forward, typically there'll be some outcome of where the material goes. Offshore, beach renourishment,
Right.
where the beaches are. Is it going to the DSA? Is it going very far away and costing the town a lot of money in order to do that? Because it depends on the reasons for it and so on. So we can talk about all of the 29, how many we have? 2,900, no,
Could I ask a
the
question?
770 permits we have, Art, if you want to do that.
No,
then we can
no,
get
I-
into
You know,
that,
I think
Could
we're-
we somehow figure out a way through this committee to be able to track that material? Because it seems to
That
me
this
like
is,
that would be.
okay, I understand your question, but this is not the venue to address that in, okay? We have an agenda here, and
Can I just ask a question?
What's your
Okay.
name for the record, please?
Pam Keith, 73 Standish Street. Thank you for recognizing me. I have a question on the state agency business. I do understand part of the law and tolling appear to be for state agency permits. There was another separate municipal law. Attorney Galvin did write back to me using both of those laws, and I wrote back to him saying, gee, I don't agree with the state agency law, but I do understand the municipal one. He also wrote to one other resident in town, and she forwarded me his answer, where he only highlighted the municipal law. And the language appears to be different as far as this tolling business goes, where there is some clear language in the state permitting agency law, order number 42 it was, that tolling adds on. There's a paragraph with some language about adding on some extra days for tolling. In the municipal law, which was the Acts of 2020, Chapter 53, they call it the Municipal Relief Act. I have part of the paragraph here that Bob Galvin also highlighted for me. It doesn't have that language in there with this tolling and adding on these days. So I'm assuming he has given you guidance, possibly, I'm assuming you didn't, that Mr. Grafton did not create the 462 days. I believe that must have come from Attorney Galvin.
right, Attorney Galvin has advised us that with regard to both the municipal and the state, the same tolling applies.
Well, the question I have is, I'm assuming you feel you have to agree with them, but I mean, how is it that you're considered a state permitting agency? And did Mr. Grafton kind of say that because the law is Chapter 130?
So what happens is, just to answer this really quick, and I think we should get back to
Then
this.
we're gonna move back
and
to the
if
agenda.
Pam Keith wants to have a meeting with the chair and Eric and I, we can go over that. That'd be more appropriate there. But the answer is this, is they're intermingled. And so they run in parallel. The state the state jurisdiction and the town jurisdiction merge under the Concom unless there's a conflict. As we know, there's appeals process under the state, and then there's complaint process under the town, so they can go their separate ways. And there are times where the commission denies on a project, it gets appealed, and the state says, no, this is our jurisdiction, et cetera. So we know how that works, and I know you're versed in it. So I was just going to say that they merge at the time of the NOI process, the RDA process, et cetera, and then when there's discrepancies, they sort of separate, and the state will take its jurisdiction back and say, we'll rule on this, and they can do a superseding. And Mr. Keith, I think, knows this pretty well.
Can I just inform you of something? I found it interesting. When you're extending a permit, if you extend a permit, if you extend it incorrectly, let's say after it's expired, there was a court case, I'd have to look it up, I forget the name, but the DEP will not hear that appeal. That is not appealable to the DEP. So extending permits is not state jurisdiction. It is purely a local jurisdiction. People who appealed that had to go to Superior Court. DEP refused to hear anything about extending a permit. It is a purely local decision. So I disagree with Mr. Galvin, who does sometimes give advice to the town that the town wants to hear. So I just
Well, no one sitting at this table is a lawyer, so we have to, we listen to town council.
Can I just, I know, when.
I think we all have your letter.
Well, I know I didn't have,
I added Mr. Loggy to the list. I forwarded it to him, so we all have it. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to close this real quick
Yeah,
for you,
okay.
and then that's it. You guys want to have special meetings, we'll definitely meet with you. It's not an issue. We had also reached out to Circuit Rider. The Circuit Rider said specifically, I cannot rule or give you the tolling on the town bylaw or municipal. I can only provide you the information at the state level. So they're separate but connected, and we know that both of them provide for tolling because these were difficult times, and the permitting, they were at the mercy of the pandemic in many cases. So there's some understanding and flexibility that's built in. The same kind of thing would have happened when we had the 2018 storms and when Governor Patrick had the economic issues. So I think we can pick this up in another conversation. It's been an excellent conversation, but we have to just close this out. And I think your action I'm hearing is no action.
No action. I think we are in consensus on that.
Yes.
Okay.
So then, so
I'm sorry.
this is closed there. No, she doesn't have to
No,
recognize
I
you.
don't actually. I'm sorry. And we can have a separate meeting, but we have
I'm
a
just wondering
lot
if the other board members have seen the letter from the DEP that states that it's sealed. Because are you keeping it a secret, or are you sharing it with the other board members? From 2004, the one we gave you?
That is not germane to anything that is being discussed right now. I'm sorry. But that's not,
Eric, please.
not part of the agenda.
Something you know is wrong.
No, I don't have to recognize you. We're discussing an extension.
I don't have the capacity to recognize you.
Okay.
So Bert's back. So the decision there is no action?
no action.
Do you want to take a vote and say no action, or do you just want to make it boldly known? You know what I mean? Just
Make a motion, just be done with it.
I move that we take no action
I second.
on the extension.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
okay, so that was, okay. So what we have here is Craig made the motion. Who seconded?
Me.
Arthur.
Okay, and it's a 4-0-0 for the record.
You're in.
Bert's just getting back from the experts getting
We
back.
gave you your extension.
Okay. SE 42 2700, JCA Development, 201 Moraine Street. Construction of a new single-family home. Minor deviation was subsequently approved to mirror the plan of the home garage, but it flipped the house 180 degrees so that the deeper side of the house was located where the grades were lower. Commissioner Lage was consulted at the time. An as-built site plan and letter stating substantial compliance was provided by Jeff Hassett, RPE Morse Engineering. The as-built shows slight changes to the dimensions of the rear deck, which now encroaches slightly within the 75. It's for a single support post and about 25 square feet of deck coverage. A staircase was also added. The closest point of the house is still 76 away as proposed. 5 conservation markers were required. Eric visited the site on December 13th and noted only 3 were visible. He raised the point with the applicant, who provided video documentation of existing conditions and completed the marker requirements the following day. Therefore, I move that we vote to issue a complete COC for SE 42-2700 with ongoing conditions that the 5 conservation post markers remain in perpetuity and that activity down gradient of them is prohibited. May I have a second?
One little thing I'm noticing, there's no reference to the as-built. Eric, there's a good as-built on this, right?
Yeah, I think we actually might want to get a new as-built on this one because the as-built that they provided only showed 4 markers. One of them was
Okay.
destroyed in a storm, and then
Okay.
there were 3, so they put 2 new ones up since the as-built was.
So why don't we use the standard language we do on these, and we'll say as per the as-built, and we have a standard set of closing documents that we'll slap into, put into this location here, okay?
Yep.
It'll fit perfectly in here, and we'll have that new plan. You can chase that down. I think
Yeah.
Jeff will turn it
Yeah,
around.
I'll
like in
talk
no
to
time.
Jeff tomorrow.
Okay.
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 I am recusing on
All right.
the next.
We have to,
Did we get a vote on that one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Joe was second, and that was a 5-0 because Bert's back. All right, now Craig is recusing on this one. All right, so need a revised as-built. Okay, all right. Okay.
Okay, next one up is SC 42-2727, Diagon, 1327 Union Street. Request for a certificate of compliance. Bill, I'm gonna let you,
Yeah.
run through this.
All right, so this one came to the commission in August of 2020 for its first request for certificate of compliance, and it was denied. Basically, I went out on about a 0 tide, and the dock was hitting. And so this was one of a couple that we had at the time that were needing to be addressed. And this came before the commission on September 15, 2020, and again on 10/6/2020. There were multiple phone calls and emails, and basically the outcome of this was that we were supposed to get a request for an amended order of conditions in order to have any changes approved by the commission. Now, during some of these communications, Chair Kilcoyne had reached out to Dave Hill at Mass DEP, Chapter 91, and the basic message was that the changes would be considered minor if the commission had approved amended order of conditions. And the only way to get that is if you receive a request for amended order of conditions first and an approved final plan. And we didn't get that. So we did get this new second request for certificate of compliance, and I think we got a letter saying a number of changes had to be made, and there was a good logic in the letter. However, the sequencing here is wrong. They have not actually gone and got the request for amended order of conditions, which would then trigger recording those amended order conditions, posting an amended order of conditions sign, and then another site visit to make sure it's all accurate and right during the time when the float is in place at a 0 tide to see if it's hitting. Now, he did push it out about 10 feet. That's what I'm seeing from the dynamics here. There was language from the harbor master that if it went out further, it would probably be better, because what was happening was there's a sheer cliff. Rick, you remember that when we were out there in the wintertime with Gene Guillemond and about 15 other people. It had a really big drop there. The ramp was too short. You really couldn't walk. You have to be a mountain goat. And it was hitting. So the logic would be to push it out further with a longer ramp, which they did. That's what the harbor master was suggesting, but we never got our request for amended order of conditions. And that was the language that we left with this particular site. So I would suggest that this gets denied. We require them to file, the commission require them to file a request for amended order of conditions in conformance with the commission's expectations. And in this case, they may actually have it, but they got it out of sequence.
Rick, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think they ended up doing the right thing, because the approved permit and the plan didn't meet the requirements, because the inland side of the float was sitting on the bank or bumping up at mean low water. So I guess the right process would have been to ask for an amended order of conditions, run that back through the process. It becomes a matter of the record. And then once that's signed off on, a new request for COC, and you're done. So I think there was just a step that was missed, I don't know why, to make that happen. So I agree with that. What we need is an amended order of conditions.
Request for, yeah. And the other thing is, Bert, you have your other agencies. You got the DEP that needs to see this, and the North River Commission. And although they may be waiting for us, the commission, like you already heard, Dave Hill is waiting for the commission.
Yeah, no, I get you, Bill. Art?
I'm fine with it.
With that as
Joe?
well.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion.
I have one last question. Does the as-built show the pier and the dock and its
Yeah, he's got a great.
correct configuration?
Well, it looks good, but I think the commission needs to review that. It's pushed out 10 feet more.
Yeah.
So you don't have the problem anymore. He's probably got deeper water, but we don't know that until we go to zero tide and get out there during the time of year when it's actually deployed.
So the same drawing will work for the amended order of conditions and for the COC.
High probability, no guarantees.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Again, Jed Hannon, Atlantic Coast Engineering. So the seasonal float and the gangway are out for the winter. And there's plenty of water depth now that we have the appropriate gangway length to get out into the North River. And I guess probably not till April will it be back in place. The 3-year order of conditions expires, I think it's in March 2022. Do we need to request to extend the order of conditions, or I heard you folks speaking earlier that there's been some legislation passed that essentially extends order of conditions, or can you please clarify that for me?
So there's tolling that goes on. So this dock, I can't remember the date it first came before the commission. You're saying that it expires when, in March of this year?
March of 2022 would be the 3-year window.
All right, so then it was permitted and issued on March 19, March 1, whatever, of 2019, and it's going to be,
Yes.
So it's going to basically have an expiration in March of 2022. So it benefits from the full 462 days of tolling. You should get your hands on a copy of the June 14, 2021 joint guidance. It's question 2. It's a fit for that, so you don't have a problem with, you know, and plus it looks to me like it's out far enough anyway, so I don't know why it's out far enough that you pick up the 462 days, okay?
Okay.
But you might want that document so you can show it to Jean or to Mrs. Digan or Mr. Digan. And we'll give
Okay,
it.
so what you folks are advising is that we put together a letter requesting to amend the order of conditions,
No.
showing basically the drawing that I have there, which is what is built really, and then we'll have another hearing to go over that.
No. So there's a request for amended order of conditions form. It's like an NOI, but it's request to amend the existing order of conditions.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, and it's only for the changes, the minor changes to come into conformance. And other docs have had to do this, and this is going to be done for anybody who's in this situation. You'll notify the abutters, you'll pay the fee, which is at $100, I think, on this one. Town fee only for this particular one. You get the legal ad, all the fixins, and we'll get a site plan. And then the commission will have a site visit and take a look at it. Or if they don't feel that we need to do that, that may not be the case. But you're now on the revised regs 3/18/2021, and technically we should have the harbor master out there, Andrew Stewart from Building Commission, and we should probably invite Gary Wolcott as well and let him know. So it's sort of minor, but still you got to go through the process because we missed it, you know, first time through.
Understood. But in this case, we're requesting to amend the orders, but it's already built
given the situation we encountered.
We could do it after the fact, then we would double the fee, but I think the commission's being nice right now.
No, I appreciate that. Again, I'm just trying to talk through what you're asking for, so I understand, but it's clear now.
Yeah, you
Thank
can
you.
take that up with Bill. Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the COC for SE 42-2727 and require the submittal of a request for amended order of conditions in conformance with the commission's expectations. Have I got a second?
Second.
Art,
Second, Art. All in favor?
Aye.
400, okay. You want to grab,
She's
Look at the other way.
got her
now.
back to us,
Yeah.
hello, Craig.
Hello. Okay. Next up, SA 42-2772, Snyderman 26 Little's Lane. This was issued in 2019 for the construction of a dock. Bless you.
Thank you. Excuse me.
We received an as-built site plan and a letter from the applicant's engineer stating that all materials and dimensions were installed per the proposed drawings. The as-built shows the length of the pier is a foot longer than originally proposed, but no other discrepancies were noted. Eric visited the site on the 14th of December and did not note any issues. So, do you want to read the ongoing conditions?
Nah, I can do it. I thought it was Eric.
either
No,
one,
I got it. I can read. Oh, you want to go?
No, it's all you, Bill.
Yeah, it's more fun for me to do it, right? No grounding of floats or boats on tidal flats or river bottom, no prop wash of riverbed, no storing of fuel on dock, no fueling of vessels from dock, no dragging the float across salt marsh, native grass, and vegetation for storage or maintenance reasons. Storing or performing maintenance is permitted above mean high water when salt marsh, native beach grass, and vegetation is dormant from November 15th through April 1st. No chemical spraying in resource area. Periodic maintenance of floats and piling, securing system to assure alignment with the approved scope of these orders. Repair for safety reasons within approved scope of these orders. Option to post a permanent no wake river and sign on the end of the pier facing the river. Now, this one doesn't have, I don't think, a ramp and float, does it?
It does.
Yeah, it does. It's the one right back of Rope Marine. Right, just past Rope Marine, going upriver on the left.
What does he have? Does he have, because he was really shallow. I didn't think he got out that far.
There was concrete in the ground with wooden posts on it.
Okay, I remember the concrete. Jed, that's the one Keith Wallow put together, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, very good.
And the float was there when I did the site visit. They were going to pull it out after we reviewed the site.
Jed, thanks for doing that. That makes a big difference because then we get to check the water and everything and it's zero tide. I don't think, Rick, we need, the length of the seaward face of the float is limiting factor to the number of vessels allowed to remain on the float.
It's obvious.
So kill it, keep it.
I'd kill it.
Okay, and so standard ongoing conditions as per the as-built, which we'll cite. I didn't catch that. I would say that's ready to close.
Okay, I move that we vote to issue a complete COC for SE 42-2772 with standard dock ongoing conditions. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And of course, we'll reference the as-built, which we typically do, so we'll get that in there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jed.
All right, on to enforcement orders. Back to business. Business number 8, SE 42, 2103, 77 and 98 Cherry Street. The corrective action required by the commission in response to the unpermitted cutting on Cherry Street has been addressed by the homeowners. The conservation posts and markers associated with 77 and 98 Cherry Street have all been installed. The brick patio at 98 Cherry has been removed, and the disturbed vegetation has been left alone and is showing signs of natural revisitation. The proposal to install a fence on the town-owned property, MO60911, has been lifted as this property is under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen. The town administrator has been notified by email. The encroachment of structures at 98 Cherry onto town-owned land is not being addressed at this time by the commission, but may be in the future. At this point, I move that we vote to direct the conservation administrator to draft and issue a dissolution letter for the Gibbs at 77 and 98 Cherry Street for SE 2103. May I have a second?
Second.
Art.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. That was a long slog over there. All right.
Okay, SE 42, 2105. Mr. Brait at 53 Kent Avenue. Susan, Commissioner Karen is the hearing officer, but as she is not here, I will address this. At our last meeting, we reviewed the restoration plan of Brad Holmes and needed more information. We wanted a detailed count of the cut trees and their diameters. A field visit was made on December 14th by Bill, Susan Karen, Eric, and myself, and Brad Holmes. Oh, no, Eric.
I was not there.
You were not there, I'm sorry.
In spirit he was.
And Mr. Brait, the homeowner, was there. We covered the two areas where he had cleared. We have the restoration plan here. At that meeting, we informed Brad Holmes that we needed to have the number of cut trees, and Brad is making the point that their restoration is going to be an improvement on what was there. He has added additional, he's gone from 16 saplings to 25, and we do have a number of non-tree and shrub plants included in this plan. One recommendation would be to substitute the little blue stem for American beach grass. He has added additional larger cedars. You know, I don't have a good copy of his latest plan.
So the cedars are way down. They're like three sizes. They're 1 to 2 footers, I think. Then they're like 3 to 5, and there's a couple I think that are larger. So you've got a total of 14 and 11, so that is 25 cedars. Most of the 125 plants that went away would have been cedars, 70%. So if we take 100 plants times 70, we should add 70 cedars, but he's argued that that's going to be too compressed. You're way down on cedars in other ways, and he's substituted a variety of shrubs and herbaceous. Now, the goldenrod, which there's 50 of those, are little tiny, you know, you know what they're like.
Yeah.
And
plugs.
the nice thing about the American beach grass is it has these like tubers that go all over the place, and they're out there. You can see the picture, and they're already out there. If you could show me the little blue stem, maybe it's already there, that'd be great. Other than Brad's plant, I don't think it's out there.
Yeah, no, I don't think little blue stem would be out there.
I mean, there were some other plants in there. We saw crabapple and what is it? Honeysuckle, plants that you don't really want. The Virginia rose would be pretty good. On the southerly side, closest to the bottom, there's a lot of Japanese knotweed there too. So getting this thing vegetated quickly is pretty important. You know, I think I have the numbers somewhere.
I thought there was like 50 some cedars that were cut.
Well, I have 125 cut
125,
stumps
yeah.
were counted.
If it's 70% of that, that's almost 90 cedars went away.
2 to 1, so that would be, 250 plants. They're offering 222 plants, but a lot of those plants are, as Bill points out, goldenrod and, plugs of grass. So that's not the same as revegetating with trees and shrubs. They are going to be replanting what was previously mowed closer into the retaining wall. They had maintained, well, I guess this whole area had been maintained as grass. He said a previous owner's daughter had her wedding out there. They used to push way out. And all of those cedars, he had a photograph in 2009, and they were virtually these tiny things. So what was cut had grown up in the last 10, 11 years.
Well, some of them, I mean, I think, I was out there, Craig, I think Bill asked me to go out.
Yeah.
On a spur of the moment kind of thing. He
You
was
went.
going over and I went.
Mhm.
And I saw a lot of stumpage.
Yeah.
And I think Bert would recall, as you faced the waterway to the left, faced the house to the right, there was one that was substantial. I'm talking like this
Yeah,
big around.
Yeah.
you
So,
did note that, yeah.
it would seem that we need more shrubs and trees going back in here.
Yeah, unless, now, Brad is not on here now, but his argument was that if we really do insist on 2-for-1 with trees and shrubs, that planting is going to be too dense to thrive.
Or too dense to do whatever else they may want to do down the road when, you know, something comes up. 'Cause those plants could get knocked down pretty easy.
Yeah.
So I think he's cooperating in general, but the homeowner that is,
Cedars have all been, just since I've taken that lawn out in the back that you guys saw, I got cedar trees all coming back in there.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
it must be 25, any of them, anyway.
Now,
They're
Brad
coming
also argued that all those cedars in there is not a healthy planting. I don't know how to evaluate that. I mean,
It's natural.
it's natural,
Yeah.
they're growing
Well,
there, they're,
But they weren't planted, right?
Oh.
Or-
they grew in that way.
I don't think they were,
I thought the people that made the complaint said that they planted those years ago.
I don't know, those things
But-
seed up, they come up everywhere.
They're pretty prolific.
Yeah, if you go over to Wrexham Beach there in that area, you'll see all those cedars coming back. They're all natural.
But looking at those stumps now, I mean, I agree, there needs to be more than what's called out right now, but I'm not sure if we could, you know, if there was 125 cedars cut,
Right.
I don't think we want 250.
No.
I don't think
No,
that's-
no.
No, but I
that's
don't
not
think
right.
we want 25 and then
No.
goldenrod and, yeah.
Right.
Here's a way you could catch up. I mean, to his argument, maybe get the blue stem out, tell him to go to American
Beach
beach
grass.
grass. I looked at the Chad bush. It's also called serviceberry. These coastal plains, apparently it works. I don't really, that one's not, I'm not good at finding that thing. I'd love to know from Brad if it's even out there, but that's when you're taking a gamble on, but leave it alone. And you could pick up the 28 missing trees from the 250 and make them all the eastern red cedars, and now you've got 28 and 25. You've got 53 cedars plugging back in there with this diversity. Maybe that makes some more sense, you know? And also, those conservation markers are way out from what the commissioners had talked to them. I think Art had said they should be up on the retaining
wall?
Yeah.
What is his,
Why
what
would
is
he
his
do that?
actual property boundary? Is it the wall?
There's a road out there somewhere, like right, that's actually, I think, a road or something.
Well, there is
Yeah,
a paper.
but town council said that because of the lawsuit, that road never, according to the law, the road never existed. So
Okay.
I believe it should, we can double check with town council, but
Yeah,
I believe it's the property line.
I'm not saying it so much to be absolutely right, but I think it was out there, but the property line he would have out halfway anyway, so I don't know if we can show like, the floodplain map, and just pull up that property so we could give you guys the commission a taste for the property line, so that we at least have what, the assessor's map calls out.
Well, you've got the drawing from his previous NOI, right?
Well, this is helpful too, so. Anyways, it looks to me like if Eric puts on the aerial, the retaining wall will be right on the property line most likely. Yeah. So what they're doing is they're, setting the markers out about 12, 15 feet, and they're creating a little storage space out there. But they already had a ton of activity inside of the retaining wall. So the thought being that, originally I thought he was cooperating, Art. I don't remember what you thought, but I thought he was willing to put the markers anywhere we wanted. And I think Brad said in the minutes, it just got approved that he would do whatever the commission said. I think that's what he said.
Is that path's not paved, is it? That goes from the wall?
No, it's
Stones?
It's stones, yeah. So I think we definitely want to see the markers moved back closer to the wall, if not on the wall. And I think we want a more robust plant listing.
Right, trees and shrubs.
Trees and shrubs.
Well, if you pin them down to East Red Cedars, then you get 53. Otherwise, you may get a new species, which, who knows?
Well, we get what we...
Is what was there all cedars? They cut 125 cedars?
Well, there was a couple crabapple and
Mostly
honeysuckle.
cedars.
Yeah, mostly cedars.
Mostly cedars, some crab apples, but mostly cedars, yeah. So, okay, I think we want to have this revisited.
And I have the comments from the minutes you just approved on the 7th. Brad Holmes indicates he will add markers as directed by the commission.
Okay.
That's in the minutes.
So the markers, yeah, need to be placed differently. We want to replace little blue stem with American beach grass. We want more and larger cedars. The switchgrass, I don't know, I guess,
I have mixed feelings because I looked at that cut sheet and it's like, okay.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure, the shad bush, I mean, they're great plants and they're fabulous for pollinators, but I don't know if they're gonna thrive in that dune environment.
Let's give him one, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. So, we need to vote to require the submittal of a revised restoration plan that shall include a more robust planting plan with conservation markers on or against the wall.
Yes.
We also want to direct him to give us sheet 1 or 2 going forward. 'Cause he-
Right.
And,
And do we want to put a date on this?
yeah, holidays are upon us. What do you
Yeah.
think, Eric? Date was?
January 2nd, January 3rd?
Second, yeah.
Yeah,
I would do it because Brad's not here.
right,
Um,
right.
So, what's the first Friday in January? It's the 7th. How about 12 noon, January 7th? And then they can come back and see the commission on the 18th?
Yep,
Sounds right, good.
okay. So, do you want me to restate that,
Did
or
we
is that?
specify the size of those additional cedars we wanted so that he can get it right the way you want it?
Why don't we just use those and we'll take the 28 and then,
Double the sizes?
yeah, what, do you
Yeah.
want the big ones more? Should it be weighted on the big ones? I heard more and larger.
You know, the bigger the tree you plant, the longer it takes to establish.
Okay,
So I don't want to get super heavy on the big ones in case there's any
yeah.
problem, but
His ratio is 11 the small, 7 the medium, 7 the bigs. So that's what he has. I mean, just follow that and spread the 28 on there?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
And he should work with Eric and me to get that straightened out, because otherwise he'll do his own work.
so do you want me to restate this whole motion here?
Yeah, I just think that require them to, provide a restoration plan as per the comments tonight, working with the conservation staff, because otherwise, I don't want this guy to have a third party, because
Right.
the commission's kind of getting not the Cadillac we were promised earlier.
Right, but they're cooperating.
Yes, well, the homeowner is.
Yes.
No question, yeah.
Yes. So I move that we vote to require submittal of a revised restoration plan that shall include both the existing condition sheet 1 of 2 dated November 4th, 2021, and the second set of revisions to sheet 2 by 12 noon on January 7th, 2022.
Right. Yeah.
May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And work with the conservation staff that's in there, because he sometimes will say, hey,
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't in there.
Right.
Why am I working with you? You know, you're not a PWS, right?
Okay, next up is B10, and I'm gonna let Bert take this one, as he is the hearing officer on this enforcement, 987 Ocean Street, SE 422106.
Okay, Eric and I were out there today. We met with Bob Rigo and Brad Holmes and the homeowners, or the landowners. Why don't you give us a recap, Eric? And,
Sure, so we met on site. Last meeting, basically, the enforcement order was issued with a deadline to come back with a restoration plan by the 17th. They reached us late last week, basically asking for a site visit and a little more time to put together a restoration plan. We met on the site. We walked around basically all of the areas that had been cleared in the back there. It stretched pretty significantly far back. We got to the bottom of the 2 sets of the flags. Apparently they had initially hired one consultant to go out, flag it, and survey it, and then they were taking longer than they wanted, so they ended up going to a second consultant, getting that flagged and surveyed, and now it's a little bit mixed up with the flags that are on the plan. So what they want to do is re-flag with one set of flags, and they're going to provide us with data sheets from that wetland delineation, and then get us a surveyed plan depicting the paths of vegetation that were cut. They said they had brought some type of machine back there, and it was pretty evident just from walking around that that was the case. We didn't see too many stumps there. There were a lot of cut branches and a lot of mowed invasive vines. The area is pretty infested with invasive vines. And that seems to be the majority of it, but we did ask them to provide us with a count of all trees on that parcel, all stumps with a diameter of at least 3 inches. So we'll get a full counting of trees that were taken down there. One of the ideas that was floated by the consultant was the possibility of mitigation in the form of a conservation restriction on the parcel, setting aside a buffer to the wetland in the back there to be permanently protected and not to be developed, because I know that part of the concerns from the neighboring street there is not only that they clear cut vegetation right along the backside of the property lines, which is also within the buffer zone to wetlands. So getting that area protected and that buffer zone protected could shield both the wetlands and the neighbors who had concerns on that property. So I think some mix of replacing trees that were taken down and setting aside land, whether it be with conservation markers or a conservation restriction, might be the way forward. But basically they're asking for a month to come up with a fully detailed plan depicting the alteration that was done on site. That would push them out to basically the meeting on the 18th. I think if we're talking about planting, we're probably not going to have anything going in the next month anyway, so I think that would be okay. Maybe give them a deadline of a week before, like the additional information deadline that we give for any project, and have it, I guess that would be January 11th at 12 noon to get that surveyed plan in. I think that should be enough time for Brad to get out there, flag it, provide us the data sheets, and then either Bill and I can go take a look at the delineation, and then the commission can reassess the actions that need to be taken on the 18th in terms of the best way forward for restoration. I think a lot of that cleared pathway is going to be difficult to plant because those invasive vines might just shoot back up. But we can at least get some trees in there and maybe more importantly some of the land protected.
That's a good recap, Eric. Thank you. Basically, we didn't talk about it, but it seems to me they want an NRAD, correct? They want to get a wetlands delineation so that they can determine what they could possibly do with this property.
They didn't specifically state it, but the owners did basically say they want to know where it is. I mean, we
Yeah,
could ask them
and
to
they
file
were
an
agreeable
ANRAD
to
as
put
part
in
of it.
conservation markers once we determined where that was needed.
Brooke, can I
I mean,
offer you a suggestion? I don't mean to interrupt, but DEP has advised me that you're better off to go enforcement rather than an after-the-fact NOI, and an ANRAD's closely akin. In other words, you have more control under the restoration to get exactly what you're asking about, and you just tell them, look, this is a mechanism to streamline what we need, and the wetland delineation could come out of your enforcement order and not introduce the ANRAD. Although technically you're right, they're not really proactively going there.
Okay, well, they're gonna come back with a wetlands line, and you and Eric will have to verify it.
Under this restoration.
And then, granted, a lot of this cutting was invasives, but it did supply a screen
Absolutely.
to the homeowners, over to the, the business that's being conducted on the other side of that. So I can see why they were upset about the cutting. And there's also possibly some cutting on the Ocean Street property. I forget what number it was, but it seemed like some of the cutting might have been on that property, which is not within our jurisdiction, but that's another problem that the people have to deal with.
So we could explain to them the difficulty there, because in order to resolve that poor lady needs to be enforced on to bring Holmesy back in to resolve it, or they can figure out how to work together. And that's your best bet, especially if this restoration is going to be dealing with the primary property. We suggest that they go over there, because in order to help her, we have to actually enforce on her and on them in tandem, as per Bob's guidance on Weymouth, and Bob's guidance on, it would have been the same thing on White and Ziegler, which I've been dreading writing.
Again, the first step is to get the wetland line so we can figure out which of the cutting was illegal, but
Yeah.
a substantial amount of it was,
Yeah,
certainly in the wetlands.
Yeah, that was a disaster area over there.
Just to get back to your point on the ORAD, I mean, that would be purely for confirming the delineation for future project purposes. I don't think, unless they come forward wanting to do that, we don't have to do that. We can just check the line for the purposes of, whether we feel that the information we're provided is valid for this enforcement.
Okay.
Exactly.
And one other small note is that this was also within mapped priority habitat from Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, and they actually also sent a letter to the property owners, because we copied them on the enforcement order, and basically they're asking them to get in touch with them also to discuss the work that took place to make sure that no take of rare species was conducted. So that's not really our jurisdiction, but it's something maybe we should try to keep them in touch on as we progress with this.
Yeah, we actually didn't speak about that today with Brad, but are they aware of that?
They should be. I mean, they received a letter from them, but we can I can get in touch with Bob and Brad and bring that up with them as well.
Very good.
Okay, so we're gonna table this?
Yeah,
Pending
we think,
receipt
to
of the revised
118?
plan?
I think we could move it to the meeting on the 18th and get the plan a week in advance on the 11th.
Yeah.
Or the Friday before, whatever you guys.
Yeah, you're calling it January 14th.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine.
I'd like to make a motion to table to the 1/18/2022 public meeting, pending receipt of the revised restoration plan by 12 noon Friday, January 14th, 2022. I get a second?
Second?
Joe.
In favor?
Aye. And I am
Craig
recusing.
is recusing. Next one up is B11, SE 42, 18-04, Geigen, 1327 Union Street. Monitoring report discussion.
Rick, you got that?
Yeah, I can start it. So Bill and I were out there, I believe, on
14th.
14th.
You were looking at
So much going on.
You gotta send
Time of
me like
year.
Bill. Tap, tap, tap.
It was a nice sunny day, cool, and we visited the site with Brad Holmes, and The majority of the trees seem to be doing okay. Cedars were doing okay, or the evergreens. I don't know if they're what they were, those evergreens.
They were
or
good in the top. The bottoms were a little ragged, so I couldn't really complain too much.
Yeah, but they seem to be okay. The rest of the trees seem to be okay. There were some trees up closest to the house that were struggling, bark being rubbed off apparently by deer. So we're going to make a request that they put some small cages around those trees or wrap the bark. We didn't want to be prescriptive, but find some sort of way to prevent those trees from having any additional damage. There were some, one of the small trees had a top branch broken off when some other big branches broke off in that big heavy windstorm we had. So he was gonna clip that off so it didn't get disease in it. But I think as we continue to make progress and improvements in terms of the enforcement orders we do and the restoration plans, when I think of what is being done at 251 Damus Point Road and what's being done at the Brate property compared to what's being done over here, it certainly when you look at these giant stumps and you see all these tiny 1-inch caliper trees spread out through a large area, it's still pretty sad. So that's how I felt about that. But I think those are the only actions that came out of that we talked about with Brad. I miss anything, Bill?
Well, the thing that you're talking about on the pignut hickory is called an apical meristem. It's the top growing part. It's the one that keeps growing higher and higher. So that tree is stunted forever. So it's about, I don't know, 8 feet high. It might get a little higher, but it's really even curved back. That's storm damage, sort of beyond their control. But lesson learned, we should have had a much more robust planning plan back in here.
Yeah.
And
we want a third year of monitoring, right? They were
yeah,
kinda
we want
looking
that
a-
for sure.
Trying to get out of a third year of monitoring, we said no.
Yeah. So lesson learned on that one. So we did stop that. And Attorney Guillemon, Gene Guillemon, did back us up on that. He does agree when he's very good about the documentation, and he gets his clients to comply with that. I mean, of course he defends them, but it's like he's good about that. So that helped a lot. And we saw some other stuff. One of the North River Commission signs is off. I could tell Gary Wolcott about that. That's going to be fun for him to chase down. There was a black corrugated pipe, which you would have seen in the pictures, I think, that was coming out of the pool area. They had put in a pool before the 200-foot riverfront came into play when the March 18, 2021 revised regs were approved. That took out the scenic rivers exemption, which eliminated riverfront on the North River. So that's going on also. I don't know if it's hugely egregious, but it was noted. So I'm wondering if I should communicate some of that stuff up through Gene Guillemond in Town Council and Rick as the enforcement officer, and also through them remind Brad that the deer resistant issue has come to our attention. This would probably be something that needs to be looked at, and you could see the pictures. You know, can that tree do really well when it's been scoured like that? It's not really, you know, I've heard people who know forestry say that tree's not going to make it through many winters, you know? And typically what happens with a bark is if you chip it, then water gets in there and slowly freezes during winter time, and you're basically exposing the internal part of the tree. It gets pneumonia-like and it's stunted. So these trees have got that, and then the one down gradient had vines all over it, and Brad kindly ripped off the branches, but we didn't take out the roots. So it'll be back.
I think Rick articulated exceedingly well, and you're going back a number of years. I remember this site from early on, and you put it quite well. It is pretty depressing to see these
When you
great big
see
trees that were taken out.
a dozen or more stumps
nothing.
on the ground, this big around,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, 24 to 30
Yeah.
inches around, and then you see, you know,
Yeah.
18 trees like this.
And you know how we got there, just for the benefit of Joe, I'm sorry, the only one. So what happened was they said they couldn't put in the larger trees because they couldn't get heavy equipment down there. But
We were snookered on this thing.
we weren't where we are now, so that's the upside. So lesson learned on this one, we can't go backwards, you just gotta fulfill the thing.
I just.
But the other thing is, if I was ever a homeowner, I would make damn sure I took pictures of trees that were topped, because I see trees I see pines, 12 inches in diameter that are broken right off.
Yeah.
In numerous locations. That is a possibility.
Yeah, well, this particular case, we saw the trees down. They looked like they're pretty healthy, Bert. They didn't have any rot in them or anything. And I've seen trees that have had 6 feet high of just this much around the edges they're 120 feet high. It's crazy. They're still
You were
alive.
out there though, weren't you? Remember, Bert, at the very beginning?
Yeah.
I remember going out at that. So they weren't all pine. I mean,
This wasn't our finest hour on this one.
anyway.
Okay. So you want to direct the conservation administrator to do some things?
Yeah, so I think I'll make a motion that we,
Page
that the
25.
enforcement officer look at the notes. It's late in the evening.
It's right there in red, Brick.
Hey, we got through this fast. There was nobody here to resist,
We did Holmesy.
Page
where are we?
25.
I'm getting there. I don't have a page 25.
Okay, I'll read it for you.
24? No, I do. I got one. Let's hear it. I'd like to make a motion that we direct the conservation administrator, Mr. Grafton, to correspond with the applicant's consultants, Brad Holmes, and let him know about the deer abatement measures, and get that implemented within 60 days, as well as being sure to include a third year of monitoring.
And when you say consultants, I'm going to include the lawyer because
Yeah.
it seems he's effective. And also, third year of annual monitoring.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that's 400.
That is a beautiful piece of
Craig
property
went
though
home.
out there.
We're
Oh my
done.
gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
There she comes. Melissa, tell me what. You're gonna help us get out of here.
Okay, I
We're done, now.
move that
We go home.
we close the Marshfield Conservation Commission meeting of December 21, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, we get a second on
You
that.
don't need a second on an adjournment.
Really? That's a new one. Okay. All right. Very good.
Got anything?
Wow.